we are finally going to give some league testing a go on Moto with some Forciphilicals. So I'm going to show you guys, if I can figure it out, my deck list that I'm running today. I don't anticipate doing well at all, but we're in the testing stages after the recent ban list and bringing back a whole bunch of various deck lists, whether that's Oops coming into 10% of the field or all the different Beanstalk variations that are just Beanstalk plus cards. I haven't been having a very good time, but that's also because, I'm not really running any of those powerful cards than I should be. You should definitely be running up the Beanstalk. But, excuse me. That said, I am still interested in testing out Stock Up. So, you can see a little bit. All right. Hopefully this is working. Who knows if this is working? So you're seeing some sweet spice because I need some sweet spice in my life. Okay. So here's what we're running. I'm running 19 lands. I've been down to 17 before, like really low, but I wanted to go up a little bit because I wanted to be able to support Stock Up as a 3-drop. Typically, my lists in previous metagames my curve has more or less stopped at 2 for all the meaningful stuff. This time around, though, playing Stock Up as a 4 of needed to up the land count. So the other thing that I wanted to do in previous times that I found is in past metagames, I found that your control list was really only ever as good as Prismatic Ending was. And the problem with Prismatic Ending is that the card itself actually sucks, but it solves a lot of problems that otherwise the deck would have a really difficult time solving. Whether that's whatever problematic permanence Terminus and Source Depositors can't solve. So anything that's non-creature. The problem with it, though, is that it could never really hit anything above a 3-mana spell. And even when it did hit a 3-mana spell, it was typically bad. Whenever you touched a Planeswalker, like a Teferi or an Arset or something like that, you were already down the card, you were down the tempo, you were down everything was down. You were just down. You were already out. The game was already over. So you couldn't really support that, but you had to because there's no really other option for like what Prismatic Ending can do in terms of keeping up with like Dragon Rage Channeler and the cheaper threats. And now, especially with Tamiyo, you kind of have to have somewhere in your deck a way to deal with a flip Tamiyo. So you were sort of priced into that. But this time around, now that the format has moved around a bit, whether that's more stack interaction that you'll need because of Oops Up spells or like being able to deal with Up the Beanstalk, because like games typically end with Up the Beanstalk, where it's like they cast Up the Beanstalk, you force, they force, it sticks, they draw a card, and then have an engine on the table, and the game is just immediately over. So we have to be able to like keep up with that, and that's what I'm hoping Stock Up can do. Before, if you were playing your own Beanstalks, you could like play all the Prismatic Endings and then like go Beanstalk for Beanstalk and have that sort of parity, and then play Prismatic Ending on their Beanstalk, because it didn't matter what the board was or what your hands were, as long as somebody had a Beanstalk in play, they were winning. The things that I want to test out today, though, with Stock Up has inspired a bunch of different things that I want to try. One of which is being God Eternal Kefnet. Now, God Eternal Kefnet has seen some amount of play in these sort of like jank legacy miracles lists before, and it's never been good. Typically, you'll see it with like Mystic Sanctuary plus Time Warp, so you can take infinite turns. But it's just never actually been good. But I've tested a lot of God Eternal Kefnet in just like my own spice stuff, and it's actually pretty powerful in the grindy matchups that require that like essentially, if you think about like Entreat the Angels as your win condition, so Entreat the Angels requires double white, which is always tough, but also it never really got off the ground if you couldn't get past 6-7 mana. Like if you're making 3 Angels off 5 mana, that's fine, but it trades for all the removal, and then you need to reset it up, and then you got to resolve it again, and that can happen if the games are going long. Thing is that a lot of the decks that typically that was good against have a lot faster ways to close the door these days. Like Up the Beanstalk is now on Bug Beanstalk, and they have their own way to do Stock Up and like just essentially go over the top of Entreat the Angels. And if you ever need to set up your Entreat the Angels, Bowmaster just really punishes that. So it's just sort of like they're underneath you, and they just sort of bury that sort of game plan. I still have a 1 of because I'm testing it out. I'm not totally off of it, and it's my brand. But the God Eternal Kefnet, which I've tested before, is like as long as you have a way to make sure that it doesn't get lost on the stack, like it doesn't get counted on the stack, they can't deal with it, because if it gets removed from the board or gets put in exile, it just goes right back to the top of the library, third from the top. So that's really good. The 2 issues that it has with it is if it's countered and goes to the graveyard, there's no way to get it back, and there isn't really a reasonable way that you'd want to play that could recur a creature. Like there's things that you could play. There's I don't forget what it's called, but it's one in a black, and it's a regrow for a creature or a land, but you can just choose both if you have both, so it's a double regrow in that regard. But like we're not really interested in playing creatures, so typically that would just be like rebuy a land in an off-color thing that like messes with your mana. It's just not good enough. But I also, for branding purposes, also it's my first time playing Moto in a long time. It's my first video, so I'm getting in on this Elixir of Immortality thing for sure, 100%. This is bad. This ain't it. We ain't in on it here. This isn't going to be good. But I have played like Witness the Future here. Really, what you want is like some sort of Gaia's Blessing effect that's like cheap and replaces itself. And Witness the Future is the best thing that blue and white has to offer. There's things like Not Forgotten, which makes a 1/1 creature, which can be good if you're playing things like Staff of the Storyteller as ways to like recoup that. But essentially, the trick is that you want like with as you're playing a Mystic Sanctuary build, you have Mystic Sanctuary and Thwart. That means that you can rebuy anything instant and sorcery from forever, really, because Mystic Sanctuary can pick up the Thwart, and the Thwart can pick up the Mystic Sanctuary. So as long as you have 2 Mystic Sanctuaries plus a Thwart, you can't deck. You deterministically can't deck as long as you have access to your graveyard, and then also you can go forever. So ideally, in a clean win condition for a control deck, this is it. Like you just never decking is the win condition. But a lot of players just won't concede that way, and on Moto, that definitely isn't true because clock matters. So because of clock, I have to play a couple of other things. So I wanted a way to have ensure that like if I ever need to predict away the God Eternal Covenant, that I can get it back into my library. That's where Elixir of Immortality comes in. I am making a concession here that if I predict a mill away the Elixir of Immortality, that then I can't go infinite forever. But like, okay, this is already not good enough, but we're doing it anyway. And if that happens, so be it. Sorry about it, but like it's a recognizable flaw because I just want to have fun with this thing. So the other problem that God Eternal Covenant has, if you go up against a Caracas deck, this just can't beat a Caracas. There's just nothing to do that can solve that. So I'm playing a 1 of Wasteland as a 19th land for a flex slot. I want to move up in mana anyway for stock up. So we're playing this. And then with Elixir of Immortality, theoretically, when we go forever, we also have access now to destroy their entire mana base, which is pretty exciting. Post board, you'll see we get a little bit more aggressive with that. Up the Beanstalk is huge right now. So we're Leave No Traces post board because they're always going to bring in the Carpet of Flowers. Destroy target enchantment and each other enchantment that shares a color with it. That's pretty sweet. We get to destroy all of their green enchantments, and that's really hot for us. I'm sort of off being able to play counterbalance in this format because the going up against the Beanstalk, while it seems like it would be good because it's a nice interactive control mirror, actually their CMCs are really high. So like unless you were doing a spread of CMCs like this, like I am on playing Banishment instead of the Prismatic Ending, which we'll talk about, it just sort of makes it so your counterbalance is just stretched too thin. You want to be able to brainstorm and ponder, and like you want to be able to stack your library. And these are the things that sort of stack your library. And like you're already down a card on the counterbalance, so it's got to convert once and then convert again in order for you to actually get a card advantage. And this, there's something to be said about it changing their behavior a bit, but like just not enough in a way that they have to care because they up the Beanstalk just gets to bury you no matter what you're doing. Like if there's a Beanstalk on the table, it just doesn't matter. So I'm off of counterbalance for the moment. But I also just got back from LobsterCon. This might sound like we're all over the place. These are just like how thoughts work. So we're all over the place. I just played Parfait in pre-modern, and let me tell you, man, Scroll Rock is a hell of a drug. I get that Scroll Rock is also bad, and assuredly, this will also not make the cut as we progress in a build here. But I really wanted to try it out again in Legacy. I've tried it before. It's never been good. It's always going down the card is never good. The 1-mana activation is never good. But being able to stack up a bunch of miracles through a Bowmaster because it doesn't draw cards is really powerful. The interaction between Scroll Rock and Thwart picking up a bunch of lands and going back in is really powerful. Your curve actually stops at 4, which is Kefnet and Mystic Sanctuary. So you don't really need to go all that high. God Eternal Kefnet also is an inspiration because of stock up, because if you draw it for the first card of the turn, you can reveal it, and then it costs 2 less, and you get it off of a copy. I'm speaking a lot of words. Hopefully, you're all keeping up. This is just like the way that it goes, at least for this go. I'm sure you'll give me feedback, and I'll sharpen up a bit. But if you top deck stock up or stack it with Mystic Sanctuary with God Eternal Kefnet on the table, you just get a 1-mana stock up, and you can do that at instant speed or at sorcery speed. Like the timing doesn't matter for God Eternal Kefnet. It literally just reads as Miracle. Like it's literally just Magus of the Miracles. So it turning everything into a miracle, which is kind of sweet. Cool interaction, and it will come up in the league, I'm sure. Is if you draw a force effect, a force of negation, or a force of will as the first card drawn for turn for God Eternal Kefnet, what actually happens is you do get a copy of Force of Will, and now you have a Force of Will in hand, and a copy that you can cast and put it on the stack. Now, if you have a copy, you can't pitch the force and you can't cast the original force and pitch the copy because Force of Will says you have to pitch a blue card, and the copy technically isn't a card. But what you can do is you can play and cast the copy, pitching the Force of Will that it's a copy of, which is kind of sweet. And that comes up actually fairly frequently when you get into these positions. So like even though it sounds like a really weird interaction because how do copies, what are cards? It actually is a fairly common one. And once you understand how it works, you're just like, oh yeah, the text on Force of Will saying specifically a blue card matters because copies are not cards. The other thing that I'm testing out here is Forsake the Worldly in the similar space for God Eternal Kefnet, where it's a 2-drop, or it has a 2-mana pip that this can reduce, is that if Mystic Sanctuary puts this back on top, you can cast it for 1. The big thing is that it says exile target artifact or enchantment, and if we're in a world where we're going to be running into a lot more up the beanstalks, a lot more one rings. I want to have a way to answer that in my deck because if we're playing a way to go infinite with it, then we're going to have infinite copies of this. And the other plus side is that it's got cycling for 2. So if you scroll rack and one of your miracles back on top, you can then cycle this to miracle if you ever need to get into that position, or you can just Mystic Sanctuary something at the top, cycle into it, and cast it for that miracle. So this is like an interesting thing that I want to test. I have a bunch of copies in my collection that I want to test in paper as well. I've always just been curious if like I could move over into a bunch of these and get rid of the splash for Prismatic Ending and just not play Prismatic Ending anymore. But we're sort of priced into that because there's no good way to remove it to Fairy Time Raveler, and that card is just the bane of my existence. That's a little bit of a skinny. Instead of Prismatic Ending, we're playing some Vanishments. I wanted to play Vanishments because we're playing Scroll Racks, Vanishments with Predict. Now, there's some tension here because Predict is very good with Scroll Rack. You want to be able to clear the top for chafe that you don't want. In this position, Predict is typically tough with miracles to set up in this regard, but Scroll Rack putting a card that you don't want and then the miracle underneath it and then predicting the card you don't want into the miracle is kind of hot, and I want to test that out. I haven't done that in a while, so we're going to do it here. But it does have a little bit of tension with God Eternal Kefnet. Typically, when I played a God Eternal Kefnet, I played Deduce. People might know that I'm a high Deduce gamer. Deduce is draw card, investigate, and that means that you have essentially draw card on the table at all times throughout an entire game. And that's really powerful when you've got Eternal Kefnet on the table because it just essentially means that if you have draw card on the table, you can pretty much get a copy of whatever you want, and that copy will be very cheap. So, like, if we were to put like let's say we had a clue from a Deduce that we cast earlier in the game on the table. We've got Eternal Kefnet. We Mystic Sanctuary back a stock up. We can crack the clue from the Deduce to draw the stock up with a God Eternal Kefnet, and then we can cast stock up at instant speed. Now that's pretty hot. That could happen. Maybe if we have all of our riches, we're Magical Christmas Land. We have Scroll Rack plus this, and that's all well and good. But otherwise, we're just rounded out with the good cards: Ponder, Brainstorm, Search, Plowshares. I'm not sure if this split is good. I'm playing through Vanishment instead of for Prismatic Ending because I want to test all this stuff out. Terminus has not been good for a while, and I don't think it's good now, but like there's a lot more Quarry Steel Cutters, and so I just anticipate like if I'm not playing Prismatic Ending to get rid of the Quarry Steel Cutters, I'm playing Prismatic Ending plus Forsake the Worldly, that I'm either going to need to go Vanishment plus Predict, and then I'm just going to need more ways to actually clean up the board. This being life gain is also valuable. I mean, there's like always ways where it's like if you can have incidental life gain in your deck, there's nothing really effective like that in blue-white. Like the closest thing is not Replenish, that's a pre-modern card, is Revitalize, and Revitalize is 1 and away, draw a card, gain 3 life. Now that's fine, but it's not playable in this format, so I've played many of it, and it's just not there. You really want something like the Uro or whatever that just sort of gives it to you because it's there. But since there's not, this thing is sort of solving a bunch of different roles. Even though, again, it's not good enough. I get it. Come at me in the comments. I'm fine. I know it's not good enough. We're going to get rid of it after this, but we're going to have fun with it. So now that I've been talking for a while, hopefully this is recording. Who knows if it actually is, right? Like that's the whole thing. We don't even know if this is actually recording. Hopefully it's recording. Yeah, I mean, I see the recording button. It says that I've been talking for almost 13 minutes. I see that my voice is talking. It says that unable to access my microcam, so that's probably bad. Maybe you're not actually hearing any of this and I'm just talking into the void. But we're going to get into this right now anyway. We're going to play a league match with Force of Philcals. We're going to see how it goes. Now, are we going to lose a bunch of games? Yeah. Are we going to 0-5? Probably. I think that there's a potential that maybe we win a game because people don't know what we're doing, and maybe I don't know, man. Maybe Scroll Rack is the nuts. Like Scroll Rack is hot. There's a bunch of ways to put cards. Like before I got into this build, the other stuff I was teching was the other Kefnet, and the other Kefnet it lets you. It's the 3-drop for a 5/5, and it's you can't attack or block unless you have 7 cards in hand. But it's 3 and a blue activated ability that says draw a card, and then you can pick up a land. So picking up a Mystic Sanctuary and just going infinite in that regard is really hot. But then that also lowers your curve and keeps it back down, so your curve's not at 4, it's at 3, and then Scroll Rack picking up all those lands and putting them back seems hot. I definitely want to test that at some point, but until I do. We're trying this. So this might be a mix and match of a bunch of different things, and it's going to need to be a little bit more streamlined in its thoughts. Like God Eternal Kefnet does work with stock up, but it doesn't work with Predict. God Eternal Kefnet wants Deduce. But Scroll Rack wants Predict, so we're moving there. Vanishment wants Predict because you can put their permanent back on top of their library and then predict it away. I imagine that we're going to do a lot of this. Predict and stock up is really the shell for this control deck, right? These are card advantage spells. So like Vanishment wants Predict, God Eternal Kefnet wants Deduce, Scroll Rack wants Predict, but Mystic Sanctuary to be able to put Terminus back on top wants to do. So there's some tension there. Maybe there's supposed to be a split here. Maybe it's not all supposed to be all 4 of one or the other. Maybe there is supposed to be like a 2-2 split or a 3-2 split of some kind. I don't really know. I got to figure that out. But I think that like there is obviously something here because Mystic Sanctuary is just like an unbelievable card. Like card's just insane. I can't believe I'm the only person who plays 4 of it. I guess it's because everybody else wants to win games. But I think that like this card plus Lorien Revealed has just been really hot. This being an instant speed shuffle effect for Scroll Rack is really hot. Being able to pick up anything literally in your deck and just go forever is really hot. Vanishment off of like the Miracles wanting Deduces. It's like you could go Clue into Vanishment, pop it back on top of your deck, but then you really need a way to predict it because you're not always going to be in a position where you can deal with whatever threat you're getting away from Vanishment. So like if you're going to play Vanishment, which is not a good card and you shouldn't, you are really, really priced into playing Predict or having at least some number of that in your deck.
EternalDurdles.com is the home for Magic the Gathering written content. If you want to write an article for EternalDurdles.com, reach out to @ForceOfPhil on all social media or Discord. You can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/EternalDurdles. As part of your membership, you'll get access to an additional 15-minute audio episode every week and ad-free listening on all episodes. That's patreon.com/EternalDurdles. What it do?
I've thought about playing like Thought Scour or something like that, like a cheaper way to actually get the mill off the top of the deck, and it's possible that maybe it's like Deduce plus Thought Scour as a possibility. Thought Scour also works with Scroll Rack, because Scroll Rack is even like meaningful of a card to play with anyway. It's definitely not, but theoretically, let's say it was. Like, okay, yeah, like I'm gonna Scroll Rack a bunch of cards, Thought Scour them away, and now we're back and we have a fresh deck to draw from, and now we have our deck is now an extension of our hand with Scroll Rack on the table, even though we're down the card. So if we can Scroll Rack, pick up the card, go back to parity. I just don't know if the format is actually slow enough to give us that kind of time. It's definitely not. It probably isn't, at least. So we're playing against Wooded Raptus. I don't know what they're on. I don't know what anybody's on. We're going into every single match blind. I know there's a lot of like grinders out there that can just sort of, oh yeah, I recognize the person. I know what they're playing. They usually play these types of decks, and they're probably on this right now. Like, that ain't me. I don't know what's going on. I haven't played Moto in a very long time because typically I don't like playing by myself. Fortunately, you guys get to hear my voice and just like, the constant stream of thought going. But otherwise, I much prefer to play in paper. I think the dexterity specifically for a Miracle Shell is really important. Like being able to do that is valuable. So like I'm not worried about I know that these things will speed up the game. I'm not really worried about that right now. I'm just sort of getting a feel for this list. And of course, like, I don't know, lands and spells with a removal spell. Like, if we just get turn one, we get turn one. But like, we have our mana to some extent. We have a removal spell. We have what what we're testing here today is. But like, 3 lands, some good interaction. Brainstorm's our best card. Let's go. That's me sipping on a Coke Zero. Coke Zero is delicious, and I'll drink it like water because I'm a dehydrated boy. Wow, no play in the upkeep. No play in the upkeep. All right, what are we playing against? Misty Rainforest. Are we gonna get Beanstalked? Is that just like what's happening? That would be unfortunate. Is my all right, here we go. All right. Let's see. So we're gonna Misty Rainforest. I don't know. Is this like gonna be like an infect gamer or something? I'm gonna play the Strand. I'm gonna pass. I don't know what we're doing yet, and I'm gonna let them to tell me what I have to care about. And hopefully, there's one of the 5 force effects that are in the deck or in the top 3 cards, if that's something that matters. And if not, we'll decide if we're gonna surveil. I don't like how like a lot of players will just fire off for surveil like on turn 1 and not know what the like unless you excuse me. Unless you're looking for something specific already, like you're the combo deck and you know exactly what you're looking for because you assume that that's going to be good no matter what. They're brainstorming in the end step here, so I assume that we're dead. But like they'll typically like go for a surveil land on their turn 1, on their turn 0, not knowing what the opponent is even on. And I just think that's like a waste of the surveil land. Like maybe you're playing a Daze deck, like that's fine, like all well and good, but like it just seems like such a waste of a fetch land. Like a fetch land with a brainstorm is just so powerful. Having like that shuffle effect is just so important. And I typically think that like unless you have no other action that you can do that is meaningful and you already know what you're on, but like if you're fetching and surveilling and don't actually know what you need, like that's just the same thing as like wasting your cantrip. I think that's a lesson that I've learned many a time is like just don't fire off your shit when you don't need to when you're the control deck, because like you should always like if your control deck is built correctly, it should always like your opponent should be like, God, you always have it. Like every time they say that you always like if that ever comes up and they're just like, oh, why do you always have it? Blah blah blah. Like, yeah, the deck is built to have it. That's how it works. That's how a good control deck works, is they always have it. Like if they didn't, then what are we even doing here? All right, so their reanimator package, they brainstormed so that they could use it as a pseudo entomb with the Undercity Sewers that they had in hand. Now that we know what we're playing against, this is what we just talked about. I'm happy that we were just talking about surveillance. They showed me what they're talking about, so now I know what we're looking for. I specifically want to find some sort of stack interaction, but I'm not going to run into it right away. Like if they go reanimate Atraxa right now, I'm not even fighting over it. Like if they're going to Atraxa, they don't know necessarily what to keep. Like, what kind of control deck are we on? I'm showing them Tundra for Leatherstrand. They're not going to put us on, super shitty miracles list like I'm playing. They're going to put us on Beanstalk and then take cards accordingly. and I'm going to Swords the Atraxa with the trigger on the stack, and then we're just gonna fucking grind through the Atraxa, whatever Atraxa picked up, and not I just don't care. Like they're already going down a card on Careful Study. Whatever they bin, they're gonna put Atraxa into play. Like if they put Grizzlebrand into play, then I'm gonna fight over it because they can put up way too many cards that we're not gonna be able to grind through. But if they just put an Atraxa, pick up a couple of cards, and then try and reanimate again, like I'm just not concerned about like that. Like they're even playing it slow. Like if they're reanimated Atraxa here, all well and good. Like I don't give a shit. So now that they've done this, they have a land drop to make. I'm going to brainstorm. I'm going to hide the Swords to Plowshares. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fetch here because I don't want to lose the Swords to Plowshares in case I do have to fetch. So I'm just going to get another Tundra here. I'm going to brainstorm. I'm going to hide the Swords to Plowshares, and then hopefully we can figure out our trajectory from there. But they need to have a land and a reanimation spell. They obviously have it. They always have it. But I'm going to hide the Swords to Plowshares. We're going to fight over this Atraxa after it touches the table and they've recouped. And then Stock Up is going to go. Essentially, a Stock Up is our Atraxa in this position. So I'm going to hide these two cards. All right, Brainstorm. Get wrecked. All right. Oh, man. Do you think they're going to take Scroll Rack? Should I, what do we do about that? Like, do you think they're going to take Scroll Rack? That would be so hot. Oh, my God. If we get round one, they Thoughtseize and take Scroll Rack, fam, I'd lose my mind. So essentially what we're going to do here is I'm going to tuck these two cards. I'm going to tuck the Stock Up underneath the Swords to Plowshares. They're going to put the Retraction into play. I'm going to Swords it, and then I'm going to play Scroll Rack. And then I'm going to have 1 mana up to be able to then essentially like have a full grip against whatever they want to do. And that's going to be quite the delight. So we're here. If they want, I could also see them taking like me hiding the Force. Like the pick here certainly is Brainstorm. Like they're going to take Brainstorm because they're going to think that I hit a Force or something. So they're going to take the Brainstorm because that's the only thing that can stop them right now. They're going to reanimate Attraction. I'm going to untap. I'm going to Swords Plowshares the Attraction, play the Scroll Rack, then untap, have Stock Up plus a full grip, and then we're going to just Scroll Rack through this game, and it's going to be sweet. It's going to be sweet. Here's the thing, man. Like, they're looking at this thing, and they're like, Scroll Rack, oh, man, I already won this game. And they're probably right. Because my hand is, like, all this stuff. Like, holy shit, dude. Like, this is just, like, how can you not dig this? Like, how do you not like this? It's just take the Brainstorm, dude. What are you thinking about? They're probably thinking about, like, oh, shit, what's going on with Scroll Rack? Like, what is this deck even doing? And they take Thwart. That's incorrect. Oh, that's so good. Oh man, they shouldn't have taken Thwart. In 2 turns, that Thwart's just coming right back to the top of the library with this Scroll Rack, and then this Thwart's going to pick up the land. Oh my god. Oh my god. They're not even. Oh my lord. Oh my dear sweet lord. That's so good. Oh, that's so good. All right. Well, do we want the Stock Up or do we want to play the Scroll Rack now? They know about the stuff. I'm not going to I don't want to walk into the swords. I think like, I don't know. I think this is fine because next turn next turn we're gonna have the battle. I'll be able to Mystic Sanctuary, put the Thwart back on top with Scroll Rack, and then Scroll Rack looting a single card to then Thwart, pick up the lands, and then we have a full grip again for the Scroll Rack to put all those lands back in. So I think actually the play here is pass. It may not seem like it, but like assuming that the tension right now is with the Atraxa in this graveyard. So as long as they are the ones that help control the narrative, like, but they're on 4 cards to our bajillion, like, and they took the wrong card. They threw away their Thoughtseize. Like that was so good for us. Like next turn, fetch, Mystic Sanctuary, put this on top, play Scroll Rack. Like now I have a way through a Bowmaster that to just like put this Thwart back into my hand, pick up 3 islands, and now I'm just like 9 cards in hand on a Scroll Rack. Oh my lord. Oh my lord. What was Wooded Raptors thinking? What were they thinking? What were they? Oh my gosh. And we're drawing Stock Up. Oh my god. Is anybody else turned on by this? Is this good for anybody else? Is this fun? Is anybody else having fun? Because I mean, it seems like this is good for us. I don't know. They're probably just going to animate this Attraction and then we die, but they don't have the removal spell right now because they're looking for Ponder, or they're taking the Thwart, thinking that instead of the Brainstorm, because I had the Brainstorm last turn, that I hit a Force on top, which totally makes sense from their perspective. I would think that like that's the story that we're presenting to them. So it's also possible that like, oh yeah, he snuck the Force on top and he can Brainstorm into it. They clearly just don't care at all. So we know that the Stock Up's on top. I'm just going to commit to what we talked about before. If they let's say they have a Force of Will right now, and they force the swords with the trigger on the stack and then pick up another swords, I don't care. I have Mystic Sanctuary. We're grinding. Like this is not the battle that I want to fight over because like this is the thing this is not the thing that's killing us, and we're gonna have so much recursion between like I can swords now. If they fight over it, doesn't matter because next turn Mystic Sanctuary plus Brainstorm and Mystic Sanctuary plus Scroll Rack, putting the swords back in, dealing with that thing. Like if they try and like protect the queen here, it's just not a winning position for them. So I just don't care. They can have it if they decide to do it. Enchant that creature in the yard, fam. Trigger on the stack, swords it. And we're just going to operate this game exactly like we talked about, like, I don't know, 5 turns ago. Even the game hasn't been that long. Yep, put it in. Trigger on the stack. Nope. Swords that. Oh, I got a thing going on in the background. All right, got a different stream going. Okay, so that happened. So animate dead is gone. Attraction trigger goes on the stack. Nobody cares. Wow, 10 cards. What are those 10 cards? Let's see. What are they taking? What are they choosing? Okay, so now we know they're gonna take what? Hopefully brainstorm over days. That way I don't have to think about playing around it. If they do, like, I mean, this position, I feel pretty much in a very commanding position. Yeah, so they took Brainstorm, Reanimate, Archon of Cruelty, and Misty Rainforest. All right, Brainstorm, Archon of Cruelty. They took Reanimate and Misty Rain. Oh, God damn it! I just clicked out. Oh, God damn it! Okay, so they have Reanimate that we'll have to think about, and they're going to think about how they can dump the Archon of Cruelty into the yard. Again, Archon of Cruelty into the yard. Don't care. Does not matter. Like if they, okay, they're just gonna. Oh, they have another track. So look at that. So we're just gonna grind through multiple Atraxas in our round one. That's pretty sweet. That's pretty hot. That's pretty cool. Okay, so here, we're going to fetch here. We are going to put the, what do I want? I want a third Tundra. They're not going after our mana. I'm a Mystic Sanctuary. Mystic Sanctuary. Let's put back Thwart. Let's like put the Fear of God into them. I do want to put it back on top of my library. Thank you very much. Now, here's a fun question. Like, do we scroll rack or do we stock up? The answer is obviously we're going to stock up, but like, man, it would be cool if we put in scroll rack and then played around like that way. But if we're going to thwart and then pick up a bunch of lands, I want to have stocked up before then. So we're just going to stock up now. If they fight over it, that's fantastic because they know we still have brainstorm, so we can brainstorm into the thwart. So like, unless they have days as well, like it just ain't it. I'm hoping that they fight over this. That'd be sweet. Like we know 3 of their cards. Like I don't know. I wouldn't fight over this, but it looks like they are. That's so good for us. Like this is just not what the game's about, man. Like you got to protect your threat. Like the card advantage. Like I don't think that's it. If they, so now we have access to multiple Mystic Sanctuaries, or we have a Mystic Sanctuary right here, we have a Mystic Sanctuary right here. So all of this is also in our hand if we want it, because we have a way to put it into our hand between Brainstorm and Scroll Rack. So like our hand is this plus all of this, which is really hot. So they're going to Atraxa. That's fine. Atraxa, put it in. What are they getting? What did they pitch to that Brainstorm? That they pitched forcible targeting, stock up. What did they exile though? I want to know what they exiled. All right, so they exiled that Brainstorm. So they got a Reanimate in hand that they just used, so that's already gone. Okay, yeah, you can have this. I'm not fighting over that. I know that like we did put the thwart on top, and so I could have predicted, like we could have brainstormed thwart, picked up lands, and then next turn scroll rack and put them all back in. But then like in this position, like I'm much more interested in them actually. Like we're gonna have to grind through all this anyway. Like they're a better deck than us, right? So they have no chosen Thoughtseize, Wasteland, Force of Will, and Valgavoth. So I actually do care about Valgavoth, and like if Valgavoth were put into play, like that would be unfortunate. They took Thoughtseize, they took Wasteland. So they have these 4 cards in their hand as well, plus an Entomb, Archon of Cruelty. Did they use? They haven't used the Misty, so like they have a lot of these cards. So they're going to dump the Valgavoth and the Archon of Cruelty. I'm going to like when it comes down to what they reanimate. I just don't care about Atraxa. Like, we're just going to have to grind through it anyway. If they are a deck that wants to put Atraxa into play, they're going to do it. They're a better deck than us. So, like, trying to stop that and then just have every reanimation effect, I'd much rather spend my time, like, they just go up on the cards. We then have infinite removal. We infinite remove their thing so that they no longer have a way to go up on cards, and then we eventually win. The problem with that, though, is the card that I actually care about in their package is Valgavoth, because that's just a Leyline of the Void. Me not having access to my graveyard would fuck with Mystic Sanctuaries, and we just can't have that. That ain't it. So if they put a Valgavoth into play, first the priority is going to be to getting a Terminus to like sweep that shit up, or just not letting them have it at all. Sacrifice 3 non-land permanents. We're just never going to have 3 non-land permanents. I don't have 3 non-land permanents in my deck to put into play, unless you were to look at like Scroll Rack, got Eternal Cabinet. But that ain't happening. So this thing can never touch the board. But these guys, this guy, Archon, Atraxa, don't care. Just not interested in caring. And so we just won't. The actual interesting question here is, while they're thinking about what they're doing, is I could brainstorm, pick up the thwart that I know is in hand, put some other stuff back, and then before I draw for turn, cycle to find a Mystic Sanctuary, since I know that the Swords to Plowshares is going back on top of my library. I think it's probably just better to use this as another way to recoup cards, because I'm going to have the thwart, but the thwart isn't necessarily going to convert if they don't want to pick their spot. And I would like to be able to go up on cards if I need to. That way, this scroll rack is actually relevant. You're probably thinking to yourself, man, this is a lot of thinking for cards like Scroll Rack that you shouldn't be in your deck to begin with. And I agree with that. I agree with that. Wooded Raptors here is, quintuple queuing. So it's good to be ahead on clock in game one. We're obviously behind, but I don't feel like we're out of it in the slightest. Like, there's just so many positions that we could be in where we are totally live to just beat all of this. As long as Valgavoth isn't a problem for us, then we're all well and good. And now that we know that Valgavoth is in hand, that means that like any discard outlet, I assume they're just going to get rid of Archon and Valgavoth going to hand size because they have 9 cards in hand. So they'll probably just do that, and then we're going to have to work our way through that. But Valgavoth is taken care of between Terminus and Vanishment. We can deal with this thing pretty handily. And fortunately, both of those cards would resolve getting rid of the Valgavoth before going to the graveyard. So they would actually stay in the yard, and Valgavoth doesn't exile the graveyards when he comes into play, only the cards that would go there afterwards. So that's pretty convenient that those essentially like both miracles would get rid of the Valgavoth before Valgavoth would exile the thing, and then they would be able to cast their stuff. Now, that means though that there is a point where we would have to do that before they get a turn to cast whatever it is that we set that up if it's not natural. Scroll Rack finding a bunch of stuff would be clean, but like if we brainstorm, set it up, and then have to do it on a different turn, then the brainstorm is exiled, and then they would be able to get the brainstorm on their turn, but they would have to have this in play to do that. So talking through a lot of this, hopefully you're getting the sense that like, oh yeah, Valgavoth is the biggest hiccup, but it's certainly not totally undoable with the list that we're playing today. You would think like, oh, Atraxa, a full graveyard, 9 cards in hand, but like this is not at any means like a overwhelmingly advantageous position for them. Like we have a Swords to Plowshares about to be on hand to deal with this. If they fight over it, okay, they hit us for 7, we go down to 11, and then pick up back, just like essentially go again. And that's fine. I'm not going to be one of those players that like floats the mana and then doesn't end up using it because I'm not going to use it. So we're just going to let them have it. They got to go to discard. I assume that they're going to put Valgavoth and not the Archon of Cruelty, but maybe they go in the Archon of Cruelty. They may not know what like we're actually dealing with. They can have this. I assume that you take the Brainstorm here. I don't know what else you would take. Like the Scroll Rack is just so unimpressive if you don't have enough cards in hand, but that's okay because we have a Mystic Sanctuary, and that represents both Thwart and Swords to Plowshares coming in. So we're all well and good there. Spending it in Tomb now, I'm not sure as to why. I guess like you don't want to draw this card, or you want to. They're quintuple queuing, of course. They want to like not have to do anything on their turn. That makes sense. I'm going to turn off auto yields here because I don't want to go through my turn, and I just did. That was stupid. Okay, so we got there. So now we've probably lost this game because I just F2'd through the turn, learning how to do this thing. I thought I turned off auto yields, but I didn't. So now we're in a position where we just time walked ourselves, and I thought we were at parity. Now they're probably going to reanimate another thing, and it's going to be tough for us. We're going to need to just sort of like naked Terminus our way out of it, which is totally fine if we can get there. But like now the game is probably over. The game was like feeling at parity before. Sorry, round 1 has gone to this, but like sometimes Moto sucks. Like so it goes. They're putting Archon of Cruelty into play. That's like pretty interesting. So it would have been a lot better if I had just played my land last turn and had a Scroll Rack in play, because if I had a Scroll Rack and I could thwart this, they would fight over it, but then I'd have the lands in play, and then Scroll Rack plus the thing would be awesome. But we're not in that position. So if they Archon of Cruelty, they have the force to back this up. So if they Archon of Cruelty, what am I discarding? I guess I discard probably Lorien. Yeah, it's probably Lorien Revealed because this is an instant speed Mystic Sanctuary and that's more valuable. Oh, I think it's probably Lorien because Scroll Rack and this have to go for sure. All right, yeah. So let's see. It would be pretty cool if like we were able to come back after I time walked myself and I'm playing a bad deck. Like that would be pretty hot. We would have to do it like this turn? It would have to be exactly this turn. Because I'm dead next turn because this hits for 8 and this is 7, so that's 15. So like we have to do it in one turn. So that time walk actually was unbelievably critical. Unfortunate, but so it goes. You're probably thinking, Phil, just pitch the Scroll Rack. Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't know, man. Playing to not lose. I already time walked myself. Like, what do you want from me? All right. Yes, we do want a Vanishment. What are we Vanishmenting, fam? We're going to Vanishment. We are going to put... I don't want to activate anything in response to this miracle trigger. I think the answer put back on top of the library is the Archon, because that's accruing them value over time, and the Traxa has already done its damage. So we're going to go like this. Boopity doop. Get out of here. Very sweet. This is going to go here. We're playing Scrollsies. All right. So my issue now is they're going to put me to 1, and so I can't actually fetch. And so I think we're dead. Yeah, that time walk was so bad. All right. So we're going to concede that one because I got time walked by my own me pressing F2 instead of F1. Man, why is this so huge? Let's scroll this down. Hopefully that was sort of still a valuable game because you could see like how far behind it looked like we were. Like if anybody were walking by and saw that, they'd be like, "Holy shit, this game's over!" And it really wasn't over until I time walked myself. Like that was the biggest detriment to what was going on. Otherwise, everything else was good. Like there's an argument. Like of course we're gonna bring in surgical. Like prismatic ending is bad, but like otherwise everything else, like I'm not really too far off. Like I'm gonna board out this wasteland. Like that's just not what the game is about. You could argue like you want to bring in consign to like stop the thing, but like again, also not what the game is about. Like there just isn't really anything in this board that like is all that important. Fortunately, we don't need to go forever, so like the elixir can come out because if we mill any of the stuff that it doesn't matter, then like I like being able to recur my lands and stuff. Like but they're not a wasteland recursion deck; they're just a wasteland deck. So I'm not too worried about that. We really just need to be able to convert our white cards. This still cycles, so it's not too bad. Pyroblast is fine in that it can like fight over the force effects, but like I don't know if I ever want to really get my Pyroblast. It might be better than Forsake the Worldly. Like, is that position of like, oh yeah, Pyroblast fight over the force when we get to that position? Like, you know, if I didn't time walk myself, like I think we win that game, to be totally honest, because we miracled and then we had the other removal spell on top, and that gets rid of both Atraxas. So if they're just on Archon, then that's really the only way that it can go up cards. So like we just grind them out eventually, particularly because we had the Lorien revealed or the Scroll Rack plus Thor, like, and then reloads our grip, and then we're really hot there. I have 2 slots that I can bring in to probably just force some negations to slow the game down a little bit if we were even in, if that even matters. I don't know if it does, but like, yeah, I guess that's fine because we can just we can navigate to the same positions of like, okay, well, force their force when they try and protect it against this Pyroblast. There's an argument that Forsake the Worldly should just be the 4th force of negation because there's nothing that they're bringing in that I can imagine post board that's going to matter that we would need Forsake the Worldly for. So the surgical is only going to ever get fired off, I think, against specifically a Valgavoth, which is what they're probably going to primarily move towards now. Like they're going to put like seeing that we're playing a Mystic Sanctuary deck with all that stuff. Like if they're relevant, I don't know. They're quintuple queuing, so who knows? They might not be thinking about that at all. But if they are, they'll probably go for Valgavoth, in which case the surgical only hit the Valgavoth. But otherwise, now we're like a stock up predict 8-4 deck, like with all the white removal in the world, and hopefully that's just like enough to get through what they're doing. Like I don't respect what they're doing otherwise. Like Valgavoth, I respect, and then everything else is just like whatever, man. Like in order to win a game against me, I got to time walk myself because otherwise, like we just bury you under all these cards. So do want to play first, and yeah, man, we're gonna Island Ponder keep. We got to force a negation to stop them. They're gonna thought seize that one away, so it's not like that's a relevant thing. But it is nice to be able to over index against thought seizes. Now you might be thinking, hey Phil, why did you go Tundra Ponder instead of Fetch? Because now, what if there were 2 cards here that we wanted, or if what if we wanted to keep all 3? We would like have to waste the Fetch because we draw on the upkeep and then go again. Like, yeah, that's totally reasonable thing. I think that like for the most part, the odds are that like you draw like 3 nutters is not really all that great. And also, if we wanted a shuffle effect, we have it in Lorien revealed. So we're gonna go Force of Negation on the bottom. They can't turn 0 us, but they can go Thoughtseize, and so if they thought seize and see the force of negation, they'll take the force of negation, I assume, rather than double stock up because that would give them a thing. So we're going to put the surgical on top and then we're going to actually draw the stock up. I don't want to use shuffles. And so if they think that the game is going to be about grinding, cool, take a stock up and that's totally fine. Leave us with the force. And then we are in a holding pattern. That's lovely. And they got to figure it out. Well, we keep developing, which we know we will because we have all these lands in hand. So if they go Thoughtseize, they'll take force of negation, leave us with stock up, and then try and kill us fast enough that the stock ups won't be able to draw us back in the game, like essentially become the tempo deck, so to speak, when these stock ups are too expensive. If they do that, that sort of is implying a bunch of what their hand can do, and it also means that they're not really going to wait to pick and choose their spot. So it should arguably easier for us to resolve our white cards against that after the fact, after they do that. But they got also just like they know that they got time. I'm not putting them under any pressure, so like they don't have to make the move early, but they are quintuple queuing. And that might mean something. Like, they're already down to, just under 13 minutes to our 17. Like, maybe they care about that and are thinking about that. Maybe they just don't care about this match at all and are just going to play whatever. I can see them just like going land ponder. No, they're going to thought to. They're going to take the force negation. And then next turn, they're just going to try and go Entomb Reanimate. And that'll be all well and good. And then we'll just like use our white cards to recoup it after the fact. If they go for something that I don't care about, if they go for Valgavoth, then almost certainly we will surgical it. I would never let a Valgavoth touch the table this early in the game. I'm not interested to plan against that, even though Terminus and Banishment are in the deck. So here's the Entomb. We're not fighting over that. We are going to fight over... They certainly, like, their hand is probably like Thoughtseize, Entomb, Reanimate, Force blue card is their opener on no sculpting. Like, that seems like it would be pretty standard for like how this deck would just open a 7 on the draw. So Entomb Reanimate, we're going to surgical. Do we actually want to surgical? Are we in a position to do that? Yeah, I think so. Typically, I think they should have gone for Valgavoth and then make this decision easy. That way I don't have to think about it. But like, you might all be screaming at your screens right now, like, Phil, stop wasting time. Like, obviously you surgical the thing. Like, I don't know about that. Like, they certainly have a forceful card in their hand. I don't have a way to back this up. If they reload, they then know the rest of my hand. Right now, there's a blank here that they don't know about, and me now taking time is going to make them think about it. So I'm not totally off of it. Like, I think I do though. Like, let's say they go force here. If they can force pitch a daze and then we get to untap stock up, but they know stock up is in hand, so they wouldn't do that. They would just keep the daze. And if they keep the daze and then blow out the first stock up and then get to reload again, because they're going to reload off the Atraxa if I don't do it, they're going to force blue card, get the Atraxa, reload, find the daze. Daze is going to hit my stock up, and then they're just going to be able to run away with the game knowing the rest of my hand. And then I'm just going to essentially be like looking for my deck to deliver me the miracle, which is a fine place to be for the miracle deck. Like, don't get me wrong, like putting yourself in a position to draw the miracle. But right now we're still at a stage of the game where we're not quite developed enough because these stock ups are super fucking clunky, which is, I mean, we're testing it out, right? Like, this is the position where it's like, if this were not a 3-drop, if this were literally anything else, then I wouldn't have to think about days as a consideration because we would be developed beyond that point. Literally the theory that I've talked about with Zach on Eternal Turtles for however long now, that like this 3-drop walking into the days after I try and fight over this thing is just like, it's just like really, it's just unfortunate that like, but at the same time, like, if my hand doesn't, I mean, for what it's worth, I'm also very surprised that this has resolved. Like, this should not have happened. Like, their hand being absolute trash is just like very kind, and I would think that like, hey man, like, oh, well, I didn't remove the Atraxa that was in the yard, so we're finding them beats, team. We're finding them beats. Surgical just to gestures cap you. So I'm gonna concede this one because actually, should I concede this one? Like, do we care? Like, maybe there's a way back into this one. Are you keeping a daze? Did you flip a daze? You found force, whatever. Yeah, let's just go on to the next one, fam. I made 2 punts.
Finding the right high-end cards for legacy, vintage, pre-modern, or old-school Magic can be challenging. That's where friends 3-for-1 trading come in.
3-for-1 Trading is one of Europe's top Magic the Gathering retailers with an incredible selection of premium singles, sealed product, and even full sets, all available with free, fast, and secure worldwide shipping.
They add fresh inventory every Wednesday with weekly deals and discounts. So whether you're hunting for that elusive piece of power, a legacy staple, or something spicy for your collection, they've got you covered.
First high-end orders over $500 or 500 euros, use the code EDFREE to get free worldwide shipping.
Check them out now at the number 3, the number 4, the number 1.gg/ED. That link takes you right to the shop and helps support the channel.
Huge thanks to 3-for-1 Trading for supporting the legacy community. Now back to the show.
So I think that one's interesting. Like, I'm not too like concerned about like me misclicking in those positions. Like, that you saw their hand, so we get to untap their land of 3 lands plus Valgavoth. We get to untap, slam stock up, and the game is over. So like, that's certainly a win. Like, even though it's not going to show it on paper, like for the purposes of the video, even though like I did misclick in game 1 and time walked myself in a game where I thought we were very well positioned to take that one. Like, it wasn't as clear. Like, that game 1 wasn't as clear. But if I don't time walk myself, the board is clear, and then we have action. Like, we would have had a full grip with a scroll rack in play, and then everything is live. Like, there was just so much potential on that. So I chalk that one up to like, that one was a punt. Yes, that time walk cost us, obviously, because then we lost the game after the fact because it was a full 7 additional life that we couldn't get plus a board. But had I not time walked myself, I think we're in a reasonable position to win that game. And then the second game, had I actually clicked surgical properly and got rid of the card, we saw their hand that they showed it to us on the surgical. There were 3 lands plus Valgavoth, untap, stock up, we win that game. So like, even though I misclicked and we didn't actually get to see it, the result of those games is still pretty indicative of like, okay, that actually wasn't nearly as bad as it should have been given the deck list that we registered here against a deck that like was the boogeyman a format ago. So does it suck to have misclicked on camera in the first go of one of these things that hopefully people are enjoying hearing my voice? There's a little ASMR there. I'm going to take a sip of this Coke Zero that we talked about. Delicious. I don't think that game was one to write off, even though I misclicked multiple times and got rid of it. I think that is actually indicative of the deck being really well suited against that kind of reanimator package or against that kind of reanimator deck. Like just being a control deck that can remove those kinds of big chunky threats and then grind through whatever those big chunky threats give them is pretty potent. Like that is a potent take for, oh, maybe this sort of deck is still a viable thing that you can do in a world if that's going to be one of the competitive decks that sees play. So we're obviously keeping this. It's just like, it doesn't have good removal. Like if they play any threat here, I'm very likely to just fight over it because both of our lands here are wastable, and I'm just like not interested in having to deal with that. And then I just said it, and then they play Dragon Rage Channeler, but we're on the draw, and if their hand is just naturally Dragon Rage Channeler days, and then they daze our force and then get through it, I think we have enough, particularly because we have a scroll rack already in hand, that if they don't care to daze the scroll rack, then any miracle that we draw is really valuable. So like, it's probably wrong to not force this Dragon Rage Channeler given the makeup of our hand and that we're on the draw. But we're going to do it anyway because I think that the scroll rack is just going to make up a lot of time. We're going to go Tundra Ponder. They're going to waste that first Tundra. And then we're going to have to play from behind. But that means that we can just force the thwart. The thwart is not relevant as a means to go infinite against the Delver deck, against Blue-Eyed Delver. The games don't need to go that far. Obviously, it closes the door when we get there, but it's not requisite. So we can just get rid of it that way. Obviously, I think like because this is on the board, because they already have artifact and land, it's not going to take them too much if we interact at all. I think it's also reasonable, actually. If we draw Terminus, then we really want this Tundra in play. If we were, but the Tundra's going to get Wastelanded, so like, is that even relevant? Like, if we play on this and then they Wasteland this as a way to like start the game, and then we have multiple white sources that we can get off the ground with, like that's also interesting. I think if we go Tundra Ponder, they daze it, and then we're just on this huge aggro draw and we're top decking, and I just don't think that that's interesting. I think what would be more enticing is being able to hold up a force against whatever their follow-up here is. So we're just going to pass. They're going to Wasteland this, but then it at least is going to dictate their turn. They're going to have to do that instead of, like, they're not going to be able to, like, interact with us in a way that's going to fire off spells to get the Dragon Rage Channeler lit. Like if all of their spells now are reactive between forces and dazes, then this thing isn't going to be able to get turned on as quickly. Now, if they have a Ponder, they just turn it on and invalidate anything anyway because they now flipped over a Murktide off that Mishra's Bauble. But it looks like we're going to get out of the thick of it with that one and lose a life. Also, if we have to pitch this thwart, we do have Elixir of Immortality to just go infinite with our spells anyway. And the life gain is actually going to be relevant against the blue-red deck, which is pretty nice. And if we get to play Elixir of Immortality, that's really hot. Now, here's a position. We are the Terminus deck, but I don't want to have to be like we've talked about load bearing on episodes before, where it's like, okay, Terminus could clean up this whole board, and that would be really sweet. And if we draw one next turn in the blind and then fight over it with this force, that would be really hot, right? Like, but if we don't do that, it's a 2 of in this deck. It's not a 4 of. If it were a 4 of, maybe I'll lean into it a little harder. But because it's a 2 of, and we can beat a daze right now, and they've already attacked, I think if like they had a force of will, they would have played this first because then they would want to fight over it. So that way, they already have a creature, they could get the instant and then do this. I may be overthinking it. Maybe they're not thinking about this at all. But I think it is reasonable to go like this, pitch the thwart. Like, we're not going to get to that stage in the game where it's going to matter. Now, that's going to soften the scroll rack a bit. Like, the scroll rack's going to get a lot softer because we don't have access. But the thing is that, like, I don't think that going against Delver is necessary. Like, the thing against Delver is not necessarily out carding, I think it's going to be a lot more about just like making sure you don't die. Like as long as you don't die against Delver, you're fine. Like they don't have a means to like they don't have an engine essentially to go over way over the top unless they're playing Quarry Steel Cutters, which they might. But then playing Murktides, this looks like a sort of clean list. Maybe they're playing some number of Quarry Cutters, and that'll be an issue for us. But until like they show that to us, I'm not going to walk into it. Typically, you would go Flooded Strand, like you'd go Ponder Flooded Strand, and then like if they daze, then they mess that up. I'm just not even going to walk into that. I want to be able to get this down so that way, like if they go Wasteland, like it's a little less relevant. This is actually really strong. I'm going to put the Tundra down. I'm going to put the Ponder underneath, and then I'm going to Prismatic Ending, and I'm going to walk into their daze. Prismatic Ending hitting their Dragon Rage channeler. I'm going to do that because I want to be able to resolve this stock up. And then if we can resolve the stock up, and then we have just the 2 Mystic Sanctuaries in hand, this Prismatic Ending, even if it gets rocked, like they're 2 1-drops on the table, so the Prismatic Ending being a sanctuary target for these 1-drops is going to be really powerful. So Tundra's going underneath, Ponder that. We're going to draw this Prismatic Ending. I don't want to shuffle. We're then going to play this Prismatic Ending on this Dragon Rage Channeler. They're going to daze it, and then we are going to try and play a little bit more of an aggro game. But like, you might be saying, oh, man, you know that the daze is there. The daze is obviously there, Phil. We've been talking about it for 4 minutes. Like, we're in a position, like, this is what I mean by, like, we're not in a world where you can afford, like, let's say I didn't, run this out into their daze and I just held this up. If they waste, it doesn't matter. We just run that cycle back anyway. And if we don't daze, then they're just going to be able to level this up into a 3-3. They're going to actually flip this into a 3-3. We're going to take 6 no matter what. Like, it just doesn't matter. Like, that position, it just wouldn't matter. Like, we're in a world where like these guys right here are so powerful in tandem. Like, there's 8 Delvers, right? Like, imagine if this were like not a thing that could be a 3-3 flyer that's sculpting all of this draw. Like, it maybe there's a world where it's like, all right, like I guess we can sandbag and take a couple. You just can't do that. Like, Daze is going to convert. We're in a position where like Daze will always convert with the thing. There's never going to be a world where Daze isn't going to convert in this type of board state. So you just draw it out. Like, you just got to play through it and then hope that it's enough. And like a lot of the times it won't be, and that's why Daze shouldn't exist in the format. But like Daze is here forever, and so like there's just not a position of like, oh, just like sandbag, sit around for a little bit. Like, it ain't it. That just ain't it. There's no world where that matters anymore. The format is way too fast for that. Daze is one of the beneficiaries of the format being exceptionally fast, and that's just the world that we're in. So these guys flip. I'm going to be on a 2-turn clock, and we're going to have to naturally nut one of our things because they're going to follow up with a Wasteland. So when I say follow up with a Wasteland, I mean like they're going to, like, the thing that I'm thinking about is we have to get to a position where we can start picking these guys off with a Mystic Sanctuary, and they're going to Wasteland us before we can get Mystic Sanctuary online. But we're still going to walk into the play where if we don't nut a Miracle right now, we're going to stock up. Oh, okay, so we actually do need to nut a Miracle because they just had quadruple threat draw on no sculpting outside of this Dragon Rage channel. That's why Dragon Rage channel is so good. You just don't need Ponder or Brainstorm to sculpt the draw anymore at all, and you can just find all this stuff. And arguable too that I like back on turn 0, I should have forced this, but they had this Daze that whole time. So like they would have just walked into like play this Daze, they force it, and then the game is over anyway. So like there hasn't really been too much agency in this position. We know that there's a Tundra on top. So the question now is, are we in a spot where I can fetch? Yeah, I think we fetch Ponder, and then we have to find something instant speed. These stock ups being clunky are already not looking good. In the last match, it was the same thing. We never actually got time to resolve it. It's looking like stock up might just be too slow in this world, even though it would have like been the lights out haymaker. But it's not a lights out haymaker that like interacts with the table. And that's important because everything kills you so fast. Let's see. I think the answer is, well, we're dead here anyway, no matter what. I'm going to give ourselves a live draw. Doesn't matter. Yeah, I think it. So we could Meticulous Archive to go one deeper and then assume that the last card isn't another Daze. But if it's, I don't know if that matters. We could Meticulous Archive, mill whatever's not there, and then look 3 deep. But like the 3 deep would have to be exactly a Prismatic Ending or Source Pleasures, because we wouldn't be able to Terminus until next turn unless it's exactly Terminus plus Brainstorm. But if that's the position that we're in, if we're looking for exactly Terminus plus Brainstorm, then I can't afford to get the Meticulous Archive. So we're gonna get
Eternal
this. I want
Durdles
to
is
be able
proud to be
to
sponsored by Moxfield.com.
ponder and then find
Moxfield is the
brainstorm
best
into
deck building
something.
website
This is
on the
not going
internet.
to be good
You can find
enough.
all
This
of
is
my
not good
and
enough.
Phil's
This is
decks
also a
in links
position where
below,
like we're learning.
including
Oh
decks
right,
from this
against like
episode. And
exactly
if you
this kind
do,
of thing
you'll
as
be
to why
directly
prismatic
supporting
ending
the
was so
channel.
important in formats past is prismatic ending being Swords to Plowshares, quote unquote, 5 through 8 against like the Delver of Secrets and Dragon Rage Channelers 5 through 8 means that like the game is simplified to where because they are more redundant, you must be more redundant. And so like if this were the one of the other 3 prismatic endings that aren't in this build, we get to keep this and then play Mystic Sanctuary plus Scroll Rack for the prismatic ending, put it back on top, and then go again next turn. But I think it's still, if I do my math quickly, it still wouldn't be enough. So unfortunately, we have to shuffle this. We're going to get a Wasteland. Sweet, sweet, sweet. And it looks like we're dead on this one because they just had threats plus a daze. All right. So I don't want Force of Negation against them. I don't really want Force Will against them either. But like, you just can't board out your 0-mana interaction against them. Like, it's just like, we're not in that world anymore where we can do that. Like, there was a world where I feel like you could board it out against Delver, but everything hits so hard that, like, you're just not going to have time to actually deploy everything that you want to deploy. Do we think they're on Corey still Cutter? Maybe. Should I be keeping it in Forsake the Worldly? Certainly keeping in Prismatic Ending because it can deal with any of those wind drops. Pyroblast is another thing that can deal with them on the cheap, but we only play one red source. I typically don't like leaning into it. Same reason. I think like I typically you wouldn't like want to walk this into a daze matchup, but they're in a draw, so they're probably going to board out some number of their dazes. Thwart is while I do adore it and it's free, it's really a turn 3 play through Wasteland, and so like I'm going to board that out and not worry about it because we do have a way to go infinite, and I do want to keep the elixir because it is life gain and that matters to me. Wastelanding is like the game is never about Wasteland. This matchup, like we need the mana more than they do. We're stocking up and they're not. I mean, maybe they're stocking up. Maybe they're burying me in every axis. I don't really know. But like this is not the thing that we're doing. So like even though like you could say, Phil, you want more lands to play around the dazes, and I'm going to talk myself into that right now because typically in a world I would never think about this as like something that you want to keep in. But having more lands against Daze Wasteland deck is actually maybe interesting because we do have a way to sync. Like if you look at our suite here, Source of Plowshares, Brainstorm Ponder, and Prismatic Ending. Colorless mana does not matter for Prismatic Endings. Prismatic Endings is never going to be able to touch the Quarry Steel Cutter. Wouldn't look at this. But because we're Scroll Rock and we want more lands because we're stocking up, like it's possible that we do want to do this. And it's also maybe possible that we want to do that instead of forcing because like I just hate this sort of thing. They're just like such a better deck than us. All right, we're going to play more. I'm just going to play more mana. I guess we'll leave in 2 of the forces here because I just talked a lot of shit about it. God Eternal Kefnet's good if you can stick it, which you can't. You never can. They're boarding in Pyroblasts. So it's possible that I don't want that and just lean on Entreat, which is fine. But then we get to leave in the 4th Force. Stock up, just getting Pyroblasted seems really shitty. So we're going to bring in Hydroblasts instead to deal with all of that. Vanishment isn't great, but we do need some amount of removal, I think. Predict is a banger in this matchup. You always want it. The Delvers also show them that to you. This is what I was talking about before. Like Wasteland, like you're out. Bye. 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 Okay. Leaving this in for respecting the Quarry Steel Cutter. At least it cycles at the end of the day if that's not good enough. You could argue that the Wasteland isn't as good as the Pyroblast, but I don't want to have to fetch, so we're just going to submit like this. Hopefully that's submitted. I don't know if it actually did. Like maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know how this system works. This shoestring and bubblegum type thing. Would you like to play first? Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a clown. Why do they even ask that anymore? All right, so if we get Wastelanded on turn 0, it's bad. But this hand is otherwise lit up because this is 2 lands, but it's awkward. If we get Wastelanded, it's bad. But I also, we're already on the draw. I don't want to go on the play. I don't want to go down a card because like Delver is now just as good as keeping up on cards between Cutter and Stock Up. So like, I don't know. Like, you can't play around everything, and I'm not going to play around anything. We're going to go turn 1 Mystic Sanctuary. We're going to show that. Hopefully, they think that that is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength, and being like, we just want to get our clunkier plays up because they're like, oh yeah, they're playing a bad deck with clunky cards. So, going to do that. and hopefully they don't have a bunch of boogie land wastelands. And even if they do, I don't know, man. Like our likeliest hit of any card type in our deck is another land. So one land off the top like gives us Lorien Reveal for another land, and then we're off to the races, and we like don't have to worry about that wasteland that wasn't backed up by pressure. Like the wastelands, the early wastelands that aren't chunking for or converting some amount of damage don't matter nearly as much as the ones that do. So like if we're in a position where they just want to turn one fire wasteland off, and then like we have to like play to an 18 outer. Okay, we're playing to an 18 outer. I'm not gonna mulligan what is otherwise excellent. Like if they go turn one Dragon Rage Channeler here, if we draw land, great, we get to play around days. If we don't, then I get to cycle, play Lorien Revealed, hold this, and then I'm going to fire it off anyway. I just don't like want to get in a position where they can play Dragon Rage Channeler and then we're fighting and then their interaction is sculpting their draw. Like that's just the worst type of thing ever. Like I'd rather walk into the days than like try and get tricky with whatever. Like you just can't play around days. You just don't play around days. Like unless we're in a position where the game is like developed significantly beyond that. Like that's just not a thing. So they know that we are drawing. What? What are we going to draw, fam? What are we drawing? Because I'm going to Lorien Revealed for a land here. Should I Lorien Revealed? No, because if we have a land on top, then I'm just going to play it and not cycle this thing. So, like, if they saw a land, that's fine. So I'm just going to take this natural draw, let them have that information. I'm not going to overthink it. All right. Draw. Land. Boom. Boomski. Too easy, fam. Too easy. All right. Because we have Hydroblast, and we have a Brainstorm that can cycle the Lorien Revealed away. Also, cool thing about Vanishment is being able to go at instant speed off of Island. So, like, if they were to waste this, we actually can Brainstorm and still Miracle back whatever they would play out of the fact. So, they know about this. I'm just going to play it. There's no need to go and get too tricky here. I don't want to walk into a Power Blast if I don't have to. And if they're not going to use their mana, I don't have any requirement to use mine. That's a happy place that I'm happy to be if neither of us are using our mana. So if they're not developing, I'm not too concerned. This is happening. They're going to go Brainstorm fetch. They're definitely going to put a threat into play because they can't, go multiple turns without putting a threat into play. With the threat on the stack, I'm going to Brainstorm and I'm going to put back our 2 miracles. So this is going to go here. This is going to go here. They're going to. This Vanishment is going to put their Delver back on top. Next turn, they're going to untap. They're going to play their Delver, and the Terminus on the back shot is going to clean it up. And we don't need to cycle this Lorien Reveal because we drew the Tundra for turn. So we're off the Brainstorm, rather. So yes, we want to reveal the miracle. I don't want to do anything in response to that miracle. They can do something if they want to, but they're not going to. Like if they spend their force on it, oh my lord, please spend your force on a fork and Vanishment. So we're doing this. That goes back on top. Tundra here. So now we have Terminus back on top, and I want to be able to draw. So like if they go Wasteland, waste this Tundra, I don't want to be stuck with this thing, and I'd rather hold up this Ponder. We know that they're drawing the Delver for turn, and until they show us something else, I'm not going to be too concerned about it. We know that the Terminus is going to be able to clean up this Delver, so I'm not going to fire off this Ponder. If they fire off a Wasteland on our Tundra, and then that they strand that Terminus, then I'll cycle for another Tundra, and then this Ponder will find us a follow-up removal spell. As you can see, there's all this action happening about like in this early game positioning. And like stock up is just sitting here. It's just sitting here until all of the battle is done, and then we would be able to resolve the stock up to reload. But like I just don't even know if that's necessary. Like I feel like there was just better things to do. Like I really like the Merchant Scroll package I played before, where you could operate on 2, and if you were in a position where the Merchant Scroll needed to get the card advantage spell, you could go get the card advantage spell. But if you needed the removal spell or counter magic that for 0 mana, you could just go and get that thing. So like having access to what you need at all times is just so much more valuable than like all of the plans that we're talking about. The stock up is just not part of it. It's just like way too slow and clunky for where the format's at. It feels like, at least in these last 2 games, like obviously it's insane when you get it. It's insane if you can convert them, and it's insane against guys who are me. But against the stuff where like the most of the format that isn't me, this feels like 3 mana is just so much. Like I just don't know if you can be in a world where like I just don't know if the Legacy is in a place where you can play 3 mana spells that aren't with Ancient Tomb. So this Terminus is going to clear this Delver. Fortunately, like you'd be like, oh man, like I don't know, like you're still at 20. Like, do you want to get into a better position where you would be able to like do anything with that Terminus? Nah. We have Mystic Sanctuary. We're gonna have all like a bajillion Terminuses whenever we want them. We're also sitting with 2 Mystic Sanctuaries in hand to put that back on top. I'm really just not concerned about it. Also, like if you think about like where the world would be if in any of those positions before, would I like to reveal Terminus? Yes, I would. If we were in those positions before where I was playing Predict, which I am, or Deduce instead of Stock Up, like if Stock Up's it's like, okay, you have stock up and predicts. But if it was stock ups and deduces, I don't need to do anything in response to this miracle. There were stock ups and deduces, then deduce is working with this package with the thing, so with the miracles. So it's also probable that like what this is teaching that like, yeah, scroll rack probably bad, not good enough to be in the deck. But like instead of stock ups and predicts, it's probably better if the gambit is predicts and deduces, because then you're better with miracles and you can just operate better that way, and then you would be able to still work with the vanishments. Vanishment is going to make deduce a lot more powerful because you'll be able to Mystic Sanctuary and talk about all that play pattern, but then you would still be able to play Vanishment because Predict is in your deck, so you would be able to actually get it off the top. Before we go here, I do want to Island Cycle. I'm going to spend this Island Cycle not getting I think I'm going to get a Tundra here. I'm going to play this Tundra, and then I'm going to cast a Ponder. I actually do want to have a set up my draw. If I want one thing and then I need a shuffle effect, I have this other Lorien Revealed. This other Lorien Revealed is almost certainly going to get us a Mystic Sanctuary. But now that we know that Vanishment for a follow-up threat is actually pretty interesting, I think I might actually take that. I think I'm interested in that. If they do anything, we get to go Vanishment plus stock up, and that's pretty hot. So I think we're going to just put this force down, put the Vanishment underneath it, and then have this Ponder for later. We're really set up otherwise. If they don't play a threat, then we have this instant speed land cycle that we can get a Mystic Sanctuary for whatever we actually do want. And we have options. So we have optionality to their full grip. The only thing that we don't have is if they were to go stock up right now, fine. I didn't keep the force will. I'm not going to fight over it anyway because that's just not what the matchup is about. I want to fight over their threats. As long as their threats aren't killing me, they can have all of the threats that they want. If I have all the answers, then that's fine. And they're stock up for my, like, if they go stock up and I get stock up and they force my stock up, then we're just at the parity anyway. They went up a card and I then got up a card because they went back down a card. So we become back at parity, and that's totally fine. So now this Vanishment is actually going to convert off the top because they played another threat, of course. You can tell that they're playing one threat at a time, which is nice, not walking into a Terminus. But that sets us up nicely for Vanishment. I don't need to do anything in response to the Vanishment. Vanishment is going to go on the stack. It's going to target this Dragon Rage channel. They're not fetching, so that means that they won't have access to a Pyroblast unless they want to get rid of that threat, which is kind of cool. So I think I want to be able to make my land drop here. I know what the top is, and I don't think I want a Force of Will in this position because Quarry Steel Cutter is covered by this Hydroblast, so I'm going to Island Cycle. I do want another Mystic Sanctuary, but we don't have Thwart in the deck, so that's a little less relevant than it otherwise would be, but I would like to know, is there anything that we care about getting on top? Our hand is pretty loaded off the stock up and this Ponder. I think I'm just going to get another Tundra. Play this Tundra, cast this stock up. I'm totally fine. If it goes into a daze, I'm totally fine with it. Like, them not being like, if they go Pyroblast here and then untap, that's fine. I have Ponder to find up a follow-up threat. You might be saying, Phil, like, why walk into their thing? Well, if they fetch and get rid of their threat, that's also well and good. Like, again, like the Pyroblast on my thing is not the thing that matters. This Hydroblast is not going to go after their Pyroblast unless this Pyroblast was somehow fighting over a threat. My Hydroblast is going to go after Quarry Steel Cutters if they show it to me, or the Dragon Rage channelers. Like, I'm not fighting over this thing because this is more important to me as the answer. Like, going up cards, not as relevant as like having development. I also like put the Entreat in my deck. Like, that's where our positioning is now. We are developed. They don't seem to care to fight over mana, like, which is a good thing for us. Hopefully they're the kind of Delver gamers that I think are correct by boarding out their Wastelands against these types of control decks and just being more threat dense. You essentially take out your Wastelands and you put in your Pyroblast, and they're just this way more threat dense thing since you know that they're not pressuring your mana base. Them just being reactive here, like not putting a threat into play, is really great. Like, so lovely. This is just Gentleman's Magic the way that it was intended. I'm going to draw. Hopefully it's an Entreat and we'll just fucking slam it, and then they fight over it, and then it doesn't matter. We just keep going. If they have a Force of Negation up and they were to fight over the thing, a little upkeep action here. So this is a position where you'd be like, Phil, you just said you're not going to fight over the counter advantage. Yeah, but I'm going to fight over this because this is a threat. It may, I'm going to counter target spell if it's red, baby. This is a card advantage spell, but really it's the threat on the other side, and I don't want to have to deal with that. So if they want to fight their Pyroblast on this Hydroblast, and then they can go up some cards, at least they're down for this, and then I'll be able to resolve whatever I want. In which case, I would like to go like Ponder into a stock up here. But they're gonna not worry about that. They're gonna hold up a Pyroblast if they have another one. That's why I don't like Force. We're just like there's nothing really in their deck that I'd want to force. And this is also not what I want to keep. But the Lorien Revealed is kind of hot. Mystic Sanctuary as the land drop is good. It means that I can put stock up back on top of the deck, and I'll probably do that. But like, I could also just draw and hold up a Force of Will and then untap Lorien Revealed. I think I like that a little bit better, and I'm going to commit to it. So we're going to go like this. Force, use Punter's ability, no. So we'll force pitch Force on whatever their next threat is. If they have a follow-up Pyroblast, that means that it'll clear the way for us to go Lorien Revealed, unless their hand is exactly like threat plus Pyroblast plus days, and they didn't cast that threat last turn. But otherwise, I'm happy to be in a position where I can just spend these two forces that I don't even want in my deck anyway. I'm literally whatever their threat is. I don't care. I don't care that I'm at 20. I'm not letting a threat resolve, because once they can protect a threat, that threat can go coast to coast, and I'm just not interested. We're just not in those. We're not in the world. We're not in that world anymore. Anyway, is anybody having fun? Are we having fun? Is this cool? Do people like the inner monologue? Like, I don't know, man. Like, is this like, I feel like what I'm talking about is happening a good percentage of the time. Like, is this interesting? Are people interested in thinking about like these sort of control lines that are going on? Like, I don't know. Like, is that cool? Is that hot? Like, here's the thing. They're playing Brainstorm. Oh my god, if they actually aren't gonna hold up a Power Blast because they want to do something else instead, then I'm gonna slam this Lorien Revealed and get 3 cards. That's fantastic. I was thinking, like, there's a possibility that you don't fire off the Lorien Revealed because you do have a Mystic Sanctuary underneath, and like you can just cycle 4 Mystic Sanctuary to clear the top, and then you get whatever on top of your deck and then draw it next turn, like the stock up. Or just putting on like a Force of Will once you have 6 mana in play, and then just drawing Force of Will if they don't play a threat, and now we're low on cards, and so we go threat for threat. Like, they're clearly looking for a threat, and if you're just holding up a Force for the next threat that they draw, like, your draws are just going to be better than their draws. Your cards are more powerful than them once you get into this position of the game. But like, I think that like, if we're in the thing where they were to spend their last cards, like if they have a Daze here and they pick up the land, like it's not a land for value. Yes, they would be able to brainstorm it back, but they just used the brainstorm that they had. I think like, like I was talking about before, where it's like we're not interested in playing around such. Like, if they just drew another card, like I think like I'm not interested in playing scared. If they have a Daze, or if they have a Daze, so be it. If they have a Force plus a blue card, I'm totally fine with them spending it that way. So this might seem like, oh wow, this is like this draw sucks. Like, this draw is bad. No, 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 no. This draw is actually awesome. This is 3 Mystic Sanctuaries that we just drew, and I am going to play this one out because this is one at instant speed. I don't know which threat they're going to play. If they play something like Murktide, then I want to put Terminus on top. If they play something like Dragon Rage Channeler, I could see an argument for putting a Hydroblast on top. If they don't play a threat, if they just don't do that, then I'm not going to crack this, and I'm just going to take a natural draw, because this being an instant speed Mystic Sanctuary for whatever we need is going to be really valuable later, and I'll just Mystic Sanctuary for whatever we need in the turn based on whatever we draw. There's a lot of context. I think that's like also like part of the reason why like you shouldn't play like decks like I'm playing here. Like, they're going to play this. If they want to spam their other 2 cards, that's fine. Like, we are at a Buffy life total, and this is awesome, right? Like, them doing this means that now I can instant speed put this Terminus back on top of my deck end of turn, untap, draw it. And if they decide to fight over it somehow, I don't know what they could have that could fight over it with only 1 card in hand, but like, it's possible that it's possible that there's something that I can't think of, in which case, tip of my hat to you, sir. But otherwise, I feel like we've set it up pretty well. Like, walked ourselves into these positions. Yes, I want to use Mystic Sanctuary's ability. We're going to draw it for turn. We are going to miracle this thing. Hell yeah. All right, so, are they going to bolt to just set up their draws? Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, spend that bolt. It's actually interesting to me. There's an argument about like whether or not you're supposed to keep bolt in these kinds of matchups. And it might be that like, if you already boarded out your Wastelands to become more threat dense, then you actually don't have enough stuff. And so like, being bolt, if you can get ahead, is the way to go. And so like, but if you think about like how much more valuable this bolt is versus Wasteland in a later game, like right now it's Surveil 2 plus Deal 3. And that's fine, but it's a lot better than what a Wasteland would do, especially if Wasteland isn't actually able to cast any of your spells. Like, it can cast this Questing Druid, and them playing Questing Druid, I should have mentioned it before, but them playing Questing Druid, like, it suggested that they're not playing Quarry Steelcutter. Okay, I don't need to do anything in response to this Miracle Trigger. I do want to cast this, and I'm going to pay white for it. All right, so that's all gone. They have no cards left in their thing. We're going to Mystic Sanctuary, and I think, like, you could argue, do you put Lorien Revealed on top and go up 3 cards? Do you put stock up and go up in individual cards? We have whatever we want. Like, right now, with this additional Mystic Sanctuary, this entire, like, we have a Yogg Will in our hand. to an extent. So I actually just want raw cards because we don't know what the specific answer that we need is. So I'm going to put Lorien Revealed on top. And I think that that's also sort of another indicative thing that, like, for the kind of deck that I like to play, which is this kind of miracles, that because Lorien Revealed is also part of your mana base, and then can also be in these positions where when you want the card advantage spell in the late game picked up off of the Mystic Sanctuary, because it functions as both, because they should never have designed those cards. The stock up isn't actually solving any role for what the deck otherwise wants to do. So like through just 4 games, I've already like identified that I think stock up would just be worse than deduce outside of against exactly Bowmaster, where stock up gets around. But if we're also already playing Scroll Rack as something that we're testing out, and like I think that the stock ups could just become the deuces, and then like we would just be in a lot cleaner of positions that like are a little less bottlenecked than they otherwise would be. So now that they've put a Delver into play, I'm okay taking at least one hit from a Delver. They're on no cards. We're about to load up, and I would imagine that at least one of the cards that we draw is a white card, a single mana white card. I could argue for like, okay, Mystic Sanctuary, put something on top. If we draw an instant speed cantrip, like we could do like Learn Revealed. If we draw Brainstorm, then we could put like Vanishment back on top or Terminus back on top and then Brainstorm into it, and that would be cool. I don't have any need otherwise for anything in my deck, so anything in my graveyard. So we're not going to fire off this Mystic Sanctuary yet until we see what our draw is. This is what I was talking about. This is nice. Want to like go over, you might be thinking like, oh Phil, the Walther tapped out, like why like just play this and then stock up. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to get rid of this thing. Actually, they're going to show me what they draw if they do that, so I'm going to hit it in the upkeep. So I'm going to ponder first. Force, Prismatic Ending. Okay, yeah, I like this. So I'm going to keep the Force. We're in a position where the forces are actually showing up here, so the Source of Plowshares is going to get rid of the Delver. This Prismatic Ending on the follow-up, I can just stock up, so I'm going to go Force. I'm not really worried about whether or not we win or lose the like on clock. I'm more interested to figure out what is the purpose of every card in the deck, and I like the idea of Vanishment being able to solve a lot of problems where Prismatic Ending couldn't. Like Prismatic Ending, obviously a banger in this matchup, but like your white cards have text in this matchup in places that they otherwise don't really. Like against Ancient Tomb decks, like your Prismatic Endings are really only good against Chalice of the Void. So we're going to take stock up. We're going to take another Force of Will. These can go in any order. I don't care. I'm not thinking about that right now. We're going to hold up Force. We're going to put... yeah, I guess it's just... We could just go stock up, but I just want raw cards. I'm going Lorien Revealed. Where are you? Bang. Use Mystic Sanctuary's ability? Hell yeah. So while they have one card in hand, I just stocked up and they didn't care about it. I'm not worried about this thing. Let's just start chaining these now that we're here. We're taking the Lorien Revealed. I want... What do I want? I already have a Swords to Plowshares. I mean, it's really all riches at this point. I don't have a way to set up this predict. I'm just going to take this Brainstorm. I like being able to have access to manipulating the top of my library whenever I want. So these Mystic Sanctuaries are now here. Unless they Wasteland a Mystic Sanctuary, where they won't, we don't have any access to Mystic Sanctuary anymore. We would just have to Elixir of Immortality stuff our thing back in. But this game's over. Like, I've been talking a lot. We're definitely going to lose the clock. But like, we're in the space where like, I don't know, this is garbage time. This is like one of those things where like they know like they're playing 6 cards to 2 cards. We're fully developed. Like, this is one of those positions where players should scoop. Like, they're not coming back in this game. I'm at 15. We've got like too many removal spells. There's just no reason to do that. Now, I'm playing this out because we have Entreat and the Angels in their deck, and just like a big Entreat followed up, like backed up, is important. But you could argue that you don't want to do that and you want to Brainstorm it back. But we have enough going on here that like we could not have to worry about that. For the sake of the world, if they're playing Corey still, which they're not, but like if they were, like, okay, we're here. I guess they're like they are just going for time. So we're going to cycle this. If we draw the Entreat, I'm going to Miracle back on top, and then we're going to go there. But like they're just going to win on time, and that's all well and good. I'm not going to do that, but I am going to end step, Brainstorm. If they fight over this, sweet, do it. All right, I guess they didn't. We're going to put Terminus and Entreat back on top. Untap. Okay, so they're at 16, which means we need 4 angels, and I don't really see the need to go more than that. So I'm not going to tap out here. Entreat the angels, hit the cast button. I don't have anything else that I want to do instead. I'm going to cast that. We're going to go 1. White. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. So we have 5 angels. So if they have Brazen Borrower, they can bounce an angel, and then I'm not going to fight over it. And then we'll have 4 angels that'll still be lethal. I'm going to play this fetch because I don't want this Terminus on top of my deck, and now this game's wrapped up. So the game was wrapped up, like, I don't know, however many minutes ago. You know, this was just like the inevitable thing that was like gonna like this was we were here anyway. Like, yeah, dude, bolt me, I don't care. Like, I'm at 12. Are you just gonna try and draw the 4 other bolts that aren't in your deck now? Like, it's just strange. Like, you know, I think like if you weren't playing on clock on Moto, like, okay, then like here, like they're still not scooping, they're gonna make me attack through it, and that's all well and good. We're fine. I'll draw the Terminus and then I'll just swing out. I think that like in paper, it would be the safe thing is like you could. I would probably like have shown my hand and be like, "Hey man, can we just go to the next game? Like you're not resolving a spell for the rest of the game, and I'll show you my win. Like scoop, and I will show you my win condition. Like yeah, right here they're wastelanding me just to like take up clicks just to get on the clock. It's like, dude, you're up 3 times the amount of clock I am. Like we understand. Like the game is gonna like you're gonna win this match because I'm gonna go to time, but like. Yeah, I don't know. You just don't need to. Like, you just don't need to waste time doing that. You could just concede and go on to the next thing because, like, we value our lives. Man, we're on the draw. Like, they're just going to go Threat Days Wasteland, and then nothing's going to matter. Like, I mean, in this position, you kind of do need the free counter magic in your deck. You know, you could argue that Scroll Rack is bad, but I do want to be able to. Scroll Rack is kind of priced into having these 5 answer miracles early on, and then like they're not a Bowmaster deck where I would be like, oh yeah, you definitely need it. I'm considering it because they're not a Bowmaster deck. So like, you know, you could think that like it could be anything else. The thwart back in, I could put force negations in just to be able to protect the removal spells early because they're going to protect the queen because they're going to be able to get a queen down. But we're running it back. We came to scroll rack, and so we're going to scroll rack. Haven't gotten to scroll rack yet because the format's too fast. All right. What do we got? We got force plus blue card plus spell plus lands. Okay. It's not good lands, but if they go threat, depending on which threat it is, I'm probably just going to fire off. They're not going threat, which is fucking great because that gives us time to ponder. If we draw a blue card, that'd be nice. If we don't draw a blue card, I'm still going to ponder because this matchup is about lining up the correct half of your deck against the correct things at the right time. And they didn't show me. They showed me 1 Wasteland super late last game, so. And drawing that Terminus makes me go, okay, now I definitely want to be able to find Scroll Rack or Brainstorm for the following turn after they do deploy a threat. So we're going to do that. They're going to Daze. That's so good. I'm so happy to see that. Like, if they want to go Daze Wasteland in these types of positions, like, I think it's just incorrect use of Daze Wasteland. Like, I can't play around Daze because that's not how the format works if you have a threat. And if you don't have a threat and then you start Daze Wastelanding me, like, we're just not in the world where, like, that is a relevant cycle. Like, you can't spend your Daze Wastelands against the deck that isn't going to be clunked up like Ancient Tomb decks might, where that would matter, and then they like can't deploy their stuff because they're stuck. I'm a control deck. I literally don't do anything but play land drops. Like, I'm gonna play land drops, I'm gonna draw cards, and I'm gonna answer your shit, and that's it. Like, you can't spend days on a ponder like that. That just ain't it. Like, if your hand doesn't do anything else, like, you should have saved it for this position, right? Because like if like there's a position where like days hit this thing, but like the days also being able to convert a card off of the Dragon Rage channel, like, you just shouldn't have done that. I'm not gonna fire it off now because like we're in a position of luxury where we didn't need to. I am not going to fire that off. That's my blue card for Force of Will. Do I care about being able to play this Mystic Sanctuary next turn untapped? If we get there, I would think so. I mean, do I wait until the upkeep? I'm not going to wait until the. If I wait until the upkeep, I can play around Force Negation, thinking that I brought it in. I understand you're just like, Phil, clock. Wait, clock doesn't matter. I'm going to play this. I do want to be able to play this Mystic Sanctuary untap potentially next turn if I fire off this removal spell and they play another threat, and I want to be able to pick it back up. So I'm going to waste that Sanctuary there, and that's okay. In their upkeep, I am going to Swords this thing. I'm going to make them like. Actually, do I want to do that? Oh, I don't want them to be able to sculpt their draw before. I'm going to wait until, like, if they crack here, I'm certainly doing it. Them going to combat, I'm going to fight over it now. I think, like, the figuring out there, I know I'm firing off the Swords to Plowshares on with Dragon Rage Channeler. Like, I'm just not going to let it exist. The timing becomes, when do I care about like, when do I care about timing wise to give them the least number of surveils based on what I think is in their hand now? I'm spending that force on that Delver because I don't have another answer in my hand, and I want to be able to like take natural draws. Like this scroll rack, putting the Terminus back on top. Like, had I known that that was a thing that was possible, sure, I don't have to use it. But like, I didn't know I was gonna draw that scroll rack. This force will is intended to stop a threat, and I'm in a position where if I can, I just dealt with a threat. If I have another threat, we're in the holding position pattern where they don't have a threat on the table. Otherwise, that force of will would just be dead. Like the load of that force of will was taking that threat. Until they show me something else to fight over, like if they try and go end step dude there, then I would have obviously put both of these things back. I don't know yet that I'm necessarily going to put back the Mystic Sanctuary off this scroll rack. I'm certainly going to put back this Terminus regardless of whatever threat they do because I want it on the top of my deck anyway. The trick is if they depending on what they do I want it to go 2 down or do I want it to go 3 down? Like if I put it 2 down, then I can draw it for turn and then I can scroll rack and keep it on top of my lap and float it on top. So here I am going to float because it lets me scroll. So scroll. I'm going for 2 cards because I'm going to put the Sanctuary if I draw this. So this is actually really good. So if they don't put the Terminus there, I am going to only play the Sanctuary for turn. So we're going to put back the Terminus and then the Sanctuary on top. Being able to hold up interaction against whatever follow-up blue spell if they play it is great. If not, this Predict is going to go up cards on help out with this scroll rack. All right, sweet. So now I know Mystic Sanctuary is the card on top of my deck. So this is also another position where like, again, Deduce just works better with the miracles just in general because I would like to be able to make my land drop and then go from there. But what I'm going to do is instead I'm going to draw this Mystic Sanctuary so I can actually make my land drop. I'm going to Mystic Sanctuary, and then I'm just going to take a hit from this thing because I'm still at a good life total. And then I'm going to, from there, like afterwards, I'm going to hold up whatever red spell. I'm just going to take a chunk here. I'm going to use my life total as a resource. Sorry, I'm slowing down a little bit because I know that this game is over, but I also like feel like I've already learned what I'm going to learn from this matchup. Like, I know that I think stock up is a little soft. I think like what I'm doing is interesting. It's at least compelling to explore, but I would want the deuces in those slots to be able to line up a little bit better with the miracles. So like now that I don't think I'm learning anything else from this match, it's sort of just dead time to me. Like the solve has been found. And I'm playing it out because like, I do want to get a win on the board because, we're making content, but like in terms of testing, like I've learned what I'm going to learn. And so like, I think it would be reasonable to like scoop it up here and just go to the next game if we want to do that. Like that was all really well and cute, putting the consign to keep it in my hand, but not a concern. So the issue now is like I can put 2 back, predict, and then predict fire off this force. And I think that that's kind of interesting. I could also do like predict, mill them, and then miracle this way, protected. Actually, I can't. I don't have the mana for it, so it actually doesn't matter. So we're gonna go like this. Do another Terminus. That's hot. Okay, so this. Gonna pass in their upkeep. I'm gonna do a nice little predict trick. Hopefully they power blast it. Predict. Target myself. Power blast it. Power blast. Show me the power blast. Show me the power blast. Nope, they're not doing that. All right, so Hydro Blast. Coming in, hitting there, drawing some cards. Yes, I'd like to show you the Miracle. Miracle on the stack. Okay, play this. Miracle again. Bing, bang, boom. Fight over force, that's fine. I'll take another chunk, and then I'll scroll rack. And then again, what we're seeing here is the world of like again this stock up. If this stock up were deduced with what I'm trying to do, I could scroll rack both of these miracles back to the top and then deduce and then have them live on the following like immediately, given where our development is, and that's just so much more appealing. So like it's something that we've like because we've already learned it. Like I've learned that I don't want to stock up. I've learned that I want to deduce with this kind of build that's extremely heavily miracled because deduce sol like fills like that gap of instant speed card draw that top used to do. So Mystic Sanctuary being the thing that helps float the card on top, and then deduce being the thing that actually triggers the miracle. The way like if you think of Mystic Sanctuary plus deduce as like build your own sensei's top, that's something that I've known for a while, and it's just figuring out like, okay, does that world exist in a meaningful way? Put these back. We're going to put, what do I want to do? Well, I'm going to deal with a singular threat. I'll let them get stuck with it. I'm going to go like this. Main phase, play this land, pass turn. Untap. Brainstorm. I'm going to let them draw this Murktide. That way, I don't need this stuff. So, this van in a world like I don't know if I would do this timing, like because I would wait until like this fetch hand goes on, but they don't have enough stuff in their yard. So, doing another thing like consigning the miracle, totally fine. I don't care. I'll take another hit. I think like the smoothness with which this would go, because like if we had if this were a deduce, then I would like, okay, they stranded the vanishment, but then I just deduce and I cast this terminus that's also back on top. So like I think we're learning that like theoretically if this is a deduce, like man does the this deck like run a little bit, not a little bit, a whole hell of a lot smoother. You get to be instant speed, you get to work with the magnets. It's just you're way softer to Bowmaster, but you're already never beating a Bowmaster if you're playing the kind of deck that I like to play. I think like if I were to run back the last two games, I think like the thing that I would change is very much the stock ups becoming deduces.
Hey, Legacy fans, since you're enjoying the show, please like and subscribe to the video. It helps the channel grow.
Support Eternal Turtles on Patreon so we can create even more content and cover events.
Patreons get an ad-free RSS feed, 4 bonus episodes a month, and Discord recognition. Join the Dirtle Maniacs at patreon.com/eternaldurtles.
Now back to the show.
Again, like this is not like when we're testing, and like I think a lot of the time when I'm thinking about like how to build decks, like I don't care what the actual outcome of those of meaningless league matches is, right? Like we're playing against two tier decks that are both very good in the metagame, and both of those things, I'm like, oh, if this stock up were just deduces and I can fire off all of these spells and then not get tempoed, like I got tempoed there, not just because the consigns were hitting the miracles, I got tempoed because the consigns were hitting the miracles and these stock ups are dead because they're sorcery speed expensive spells. But if I just added a little bit more butter to the machine, just like a little bit more, like was a little bit smoother, then I just don't care about that type of shit at all. You know, I could just be like, that's bad. You just shouldn't have that in your deck, and they shouldn't, right? Like as we saw, like they didn't have enough to board in, so they boarded in the consigns to do exactly what it did. But like, had my deck just been built correctly, it just wouldn't have mattered. And I get that, like you may not think like, oh man, deduce isn't a legacy playable card. It's not, but it's playable in exactly this type of offbeat in the path thing where it's like you're leveraging a tool, and in conjunction with Mystic Sanctuary and the Miracles, it really does just function as Top used to. Now, like it would be really nice if it didn't take so many tools to recreate what Top was doing for exactly the Miracle mechanic, but as we saw, like Scroll Rack just being able to set both back on top and then like you being able to time them, it's like actually possible to me that between 4 predict, 4 deduce, a thwart, that like having a way to go up on that kind of card volume, the fact that like at a baseline, Scroll Rack can put like expensive miracles back on top, especially when you're playing Vanishment, to enable predict instead of counterbalance. So like in decks of old, where I'm playing a lot of counterbalance, it's really important that counterbalance is setting up your predicts. But the fact that Scroll Rack can both set up predicts and the miracles, but then the Vanishment part that's being set up by the Scroll Rack can then also turn on predicts for opposing stuff, and you need to be able to play predict if you're going to play Vanishment, because otherwise you can't get rid of those cards. Now, it could be anything. Like I could also see a world where like we go down onto less lands and then I play some number of Thought Scour or Ray of Arasher or like one of the other cantrip mill cards that can target a player, and then I can Vanishment and then target and mill that way as well. It's also like fine against opposing Mystic Sanctuary decks where you get to like fiddle with that because you control the top of the libraries better than they do. But like I'm way more interested now. Like we're gonna play the rest of these matches out, but like I already know that like when we come back around, I'm gonna make those changes. And it's not that Scroll Rack has been the underwhelming card; it's been Stock Up that's the underwhelming card. And I know like if you were looking at the deck list straight up ahead of time, you wouldn't. None of us would have been like, oh yeah, like Stock Up's got the card is a card that's great, and Scroll Rack is the card that's bad. But like I really do think that like the card that has been holding us back in the last couple of games has been this guy. Do we want this? We don't have a way to set this up, but we do have lands and stock ups, but we don't have a way to interact early. I think being that we're the miracle deck, this is like one of those hands where it's like you can't keep it, but we have stable mana. That's the thing. We have stable mana for all of this cards. We don't have a way to set this up yet, but if we miracle a vanishment into their thing, we do. We also are playing a whole hell of a lot more miracles that don't care about what they're doing. So like now that we have vanishment, like let's say where they were to go like turn 2 One Ring or whatever, and I'm drawing to prismatic endings, you would have to skip this in Mulligan. But like even if we were against that matchup, the fact that we have vanishments in our deck now mean that like, oh, we actually do have way more miracles to deal with stuff. And that's why I'm like interested in like moving towards that space of being able to test vanishment, because I want to be able to be lean and I want to be able to play this. And I find that counterbalance in the current format between Usal spells being too fast, so you never get it online, and Beanstalk, which is pressuring the counterbalance in a way where like you have to keep it on mostly 2 and 5, and so you have to then condense your deck around 2 and 5 being able to solve the rest of the format as well. And it's really tough when Swords to Plowshares and Brainstorm are are must-haves. So I'm going to keep this because we do have stable mana, and I'm playing to what I just described as like more miracles against blind opponents, and we're structured in a way where we can hit our third land drop as basics, getting through all the any hate that may be had, including Blood Moons. We can just get stable mana through all of that, and so I'm going to keep this even though we don't know we're playing against and we don't have any interaction, and being on the play helps. I'm going to play this island out because we have more vanishments than we do Terminus in the deck, and they're not going to be able to deploy multiple threats in the same turn for Terminus to matter. But vanishment could matter if they play something earlier on. So I'm just giving ourselves the best way that we could answer whatever the top of our deck is going to deliver us. When you're playing as a control deck, like I typically don't like to F6 because I don't want them to know. I don't want them to have freebies, especially if they're playing something like this. I'll always F2 and then go from there. So we actually are seeing exactly what we were talking about in the thing where it's like, oh, they're just going to go one ring. And Prismatic Endings would more or less be dead. Like Prismatic Endings could hit the Voltaic key, but that's not the problem card. The problem card is like the bigger stuff. What do we want to do? Do I want to play another island, or do I want to get... I guess if they were to next turn... I'm just thinking this for Mystic Sanctuary purposes, now that I know that they're not going after our mana. I think I'm going to... I think I actually do want to play towards Mystic Sanctuary early. They're not going after our mana, so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to play this, and I'm going to pass. If they have something like Glaring Fleshraker, I'm still holding up Swords to Plowshare, so that's covered. I don't have a way to deal over whatever thick threat they play, so if they're playing a Karn or a One Ring, there's no force here, so we're just going to have to draw to Vanishment to solve that. Luckily, we're in a deck where we're situated to find that relatively well. Basalt Monolith is not something that I can fight over, and not something that I would fight over either. I get that here there's a lot of mana without a way to check it. Like, it's all checked by the same things, right? Like, this doesn't change like the trajectory of where we're at. So Thwart is really good, and that's why I'm happy that we've played towards it, because now I can cycle here, get another Tundra. So only under like very dire circumstances, I see you could play, Phil, why don't you just stock up and then go from there? Like, stock up can miss. I'm not interested in missing. If they're going to play a card that's going to do lights out, I'd rather set myself back to the Stone Age, move to discard, and don't care. This game is not about volume against Ancient Tomb decks like this. It's about single individual mana threats. So like here, they're playing a Cozy's Command. They're going to filter their draw. I'm not going to worry about that. They have all the mana they could ever want. But this is setting up for like some large thing. Now, if they go 3, 6, 8, 10 and like hit my and play Ulamog and go after the lands, then I can thwart the Ulamog and pick up the 2 targets, which will be these 2 Tundras, and then we are back at holding. And even though they have a ton of mana, I'm playing from behind anyway. I'm going to have to hit some of these miracles to convert. I just think that like if we're stocking up and then we miss one of those force effects and then we're not covered, that's bad. But like they still need to show us the one individual effect that I'm assuming that they just scried to the top, because right now they're all mana and no action. And Urza Saga, fine. We're a Terminus deck, and I do have that singular Wasteland that is possible to draw to on this following turn if I get to stock up, which I am interested in doing. Okay, Brainstorm. I'm not going to. We're just stocking up. So it's interesting that like here we have like stock up being pretty interesting. They're going to play another Kozilek's command, and I'm not going to fight over it because it's not actually dealing me any damage. And if I can find a Brainstorm and like sweep up all of these tokens that they're about to make anyway, super sweet. That actually comes up a lot. Like they'll like end step big thing, and you Mystic Sanctuary, put a Terminus on top, and before they can actually use any of their Scion mana, you just sweep them all up, and then that like messes up their turn because they were really thinking about like, oh, I need all of this Scion mana to cast whatever thick thing that I'm about to do. But like this is another one of those things where like when you're the control deck, you're already a dog in this matchup, but you also need to know the things that matter. Their hand has lined up where 2 of their action spells were Kozilek's Command, but it wasn't paired with a Glaring Fleshraker, which would have been covered by the Swords to Plowshares anyway. And so like, if they want to spin their wheels with me, like, I'm happy to spin wheels. Like, let's spin wheels, fam. Like, the only thing that matters right now is this guy, because he's about to make 2, like, very thick constructs. But I'm playing the Terminus removal spell deck, and that part of the deck, this is the easiest part of the deck to deal with by comparison to what everything else is going on. You know what I mean? So we found the Wasteland for the Urza Saga, and I'm actually going to take this Forsake the Worldly. I like, you could argue taking the Meticulous Archive, leaving whatever it is on top, and then using that to predict away. But we have this Brainstorm to set that up, so I'm going to take this Wasteland. I'm going to take this Forsake the Worldly. That's hopefully going to catch their One Ring when they play it. At the very least, the other thing that could happen is like they play One Ring. I don't want to thwart it because now I have Forsake the Worldly. I'll let them. Actually, now that I'm talking through it, they have 2 keys that just untaps, reminding me I'm gonna have to thwart the One Ring. If they don't play a One Ring this turn, then I'll have it caught. But if not, then I am gonna thwart it because I don't want them drawing and loading back up to 40 cards. So unfortunately, gonna have to do this play instead. There's nothing that they could have. This typically, like, I do like the Forsake the Worldly. I mean, it is showing up exactly in the spot where it's like, yes, this is what it's for. But the fact that the context of this being like infinite mana plus manifold key, I just can't have them going One Ring and like they just go One Ring, untap it a bunch, find more keys, and just continue to do it, and they draw their deck that turn, which is totally reasonable that they could have just drawn their deck that turn. So unfortunately, I had to go back to the Stone Age with a thwart, but like along the lines of like what we have been talking about of like how to operate, like it's okay. They don't go after our mana here, so like if we have to end step discard one of these lands, I'm okay with that. We're in a lush position of like we're never gonna miss our land drops again. Prismatic Ending was a good draw in that like we get to get rid of one of these aspects here. I'm not sure what. I'm certainly going to do it because rather than go to discard, I might as well do it. There's nothing that like I can Brainstorm and Miracle into. You could argue that you want to keep up Brainstorm to find Force of Will for whatever the thing off the top could be, and that's also a reasonable thing to do. I think it might be, given that we have 5 free counterspells in the top. We have 5 free counterspells left in our deck. If I play this Brainstorm, I can set up this Predict for the next turn. This stuff isn't scaring me if it's not One Ring. So now that we're talking through it, and this is powerful, I think I'm going to actually sandbag, and I'm going to just go to discard. It's discarding 2 cards, and that sucks, but it's also not something I'm too concerned about. They're not a Chalice deck, so I actually am just going to get rid of this Prismatic Ending and a land. The Glaring Fleshraker is something that I'm still conscious of. I'm still concerned about, and so I'm going to keep the Swords to Plowshares for that aspect. I don't know what it is that they could draw, but like there's the argument that like, oh, if they just go Mystic Forge and then into Glaring Fleshraker and then they just start spamming, and then it's like, oh man, I could have held up Swords to Plowshares, and I ditched it because I thought I needed what like essentially like again like as long as they don't hit their composite piece that actually kills us, even though we're on low resources, they can do all of this dancing, and it just doesn't matter. Here I like they're attacking. I don't know why. Is there some spell that I'm not sure about that exists in the format? No, they're just being cheeky. So I am going to end step Brainstorm here because I do want to be able to set up this Predict. And I think we're far enough past stock up that I think the stock up is going to be the thing that goes. So we're going to just stack. It doesn't matter. We're drawing here. We are now loaded to riches on where we could be. This is more important to me than the stock up. The stock up can also get bought back later on, but we're going to be dancing a little bit here where I'm going to go predict away the stock up, draw into cards. Hopefully that is whatever blue spell that they, hopefully it is one of the 5 forces that are currently in my main board to fight over whatever the first thing that they do is. They could also just like hit an Eldrazi, in which case I need to mill it and then Brainstorm back a Terminus to find if it's an Emrakul. Because if they Emrakul hit me for 15, that's okay. If I stack my deck, I can then play the Tundra and then hit the Terminus, and then we're back in it. I'm just at 5, but I'm already at low permanence anyway, so that's not much of a concern. Like the current version of Miracles is designed to operate on low mana or like a low land count, which is partially the reason why stock up is also showing a bit of tension. So here I'm going to ponder, looking for one of those blue spells. I'm playing this Flutterstrand represents the Mystic Sanctuary, but also ponder plus predict means that you don't actually want to set up an awkward thing where you have to fetch in between. So setting it up like this, I know I'm playing that Tundra no matter what. Like there is no stack, even if I'm shuffling this. Like typically I won't because I can clear the way with predict, but there's just no way that I would consider my Mystic Sanctuary in hand to clear a ponder when the predict can do it, and also we're just not in that space. So we have plenty of card draw here with ways to set it up. So the stock up again is going to go down underneath. I want to draw this force, and then I'm going to put. So I think the stock up goes underneath. The vanishment can go on top. I can predict and then predict myself as well. So we're going to go like this. Oh, I stacked that incorrectly, didn't I? I sure did. Okay, that's okay. I don't want to use pawn ability. So I'm talking fast and I'm playing fast at the moment. I just stacked it incorrectly. I should have gone vanishment underneath. So the hand should have been. I'm going to get rid of this swords now because we have the vanishment. So I should have stacked it so that the vanishment was underneath this stock up. I just, dexterity wise, like we would have been able to think through that, but clicking is a little bit different. It's a little bit extra mind thing. So this is good. This is one of their action pieces. I'm happy to spend a force on this. See, it's also curious. I'm curious. Did they just draw the glaring flesh record for turn, or did me discarding the swords to plowshares represent that to them? Mystic Forge with infinite mana, so I probably needed to keep the Swords to Plowshares, and I talked myself out of it. Yeah, I probably should have discarded any of these other things and then kept the Swords to Plowshares because I talked myself off of the line that we talked about 2 turns ago that matter, where it's like exactly this sort of thing, where it's like I needed this to line up with this and this to line up with that. But again, like I think like I'm wanting the nature of this beast is that I really don't want the stock ups in my deck at all. We are going to predict myself here. I am going to name the Vanishment. If we spike another counterspell, that's great. But you can tell how much, like, even though we play miracles, hoping to draw the miracles, how much I want to, like, be in a position where I just never actually have to put my fate in the heart of the cards. And, like, even to the point where I was like, I don't even want to cast a stock up because what if you miss? Like, it's like when you're playing control, you just can't afford to have something like this happen. Like, I certainly punted. This one, there's obviously a punt. Like, we had the tools. Like, I shouldn't have dumped the Swords to Plowshares. I should have dumped any of these other card draw spells because, like, we were over-indexed on those. I should have kept the Swords to Plowshares to deal with the Flesh Raker instead of spending the Force on it. I mean, I'm priced into spending the Force. This is one of their action pieces. This is one of their action pieces. The Ring was one of their action pieces. Like, part of their deck is action, and then part of their deck is mana. And I just want to be able to stop all of their action. And what are they exiling here? And as long as you can stop their action, like, then they just have a lot of fiddle diddle. And if you can then, like, dance around them while they're fiddling and diddling, then you can daddle their diddle, So let's clip daddle their diddle. Their deck is still panning out. I mean, I guess it's good that the main deck Wasteland to solve for the Caracas, but I guess solving for Urza Saga is also pretty nice. Glaring Flesh Raker, so now we're just dead, I think. Like, they're just going to start spamming, and it's going to be bad because now they have infinite mana to draw their whole library. So, like, we're another one of those things. Like, we could have just avoided this entirely if I just didn't pitch the Swords to Plowshares. So we're in a little bit of garbage time here because now they're just going to draw their whole library. One ring is there. Yep, you're going to draw your library. Okay, so they draw 3 cards. They have plenty of keys, so they're just going to draw plenty more cards. It sucks that this card exists. This card should never have existed in the first place, but they had to sell packs. All right, I think, like, I guess we're in a position where we can just F6 through here because now they're drawing their whole library. I'm also going to now go silent for anybody who doesn't know. When we edit in silence, it makes it easier for us to, like, just cut that out. So they're going to draw their whole library. This game is certainly done. But I do want to see, like, what is the way that they're going over the top. I assume if it's just glaring, I assume it's just glaring Flesh Raker, but maybe it's not. I said I was going to be silent a moment ago, but now I'm not because I'm actually just going to talk through it. The glaring Flesh Rakers, I presume, are the 4 ways that they kill in the deck. Just curious to see if they have any Eldrazi or anything like that post ban. So this Karn, if they get something with the Karn and show it to me, they won't have to. They're just going to kill me anyway. Yeah, I was hoping that they would show me something, but that's okay. Okay. Force negation obviously coming in. Wear Tear can come in as a way to deal with artifacts, even though I have to get my red source. The Wastelands are going to hit Urza Saga, so we certainly want those. They don't go after your mana. And so against these matchups, I've been teching for a while now, like Wastelands post-board, and then in a matchup like this that don't go after your mana, whether it's this or Nadu or something like that, I'll board out my basics because you have a way to tie the room together where the Wasteland is actually a way to, with Lorien revealed, to solve your mana issues. It's also a vintage trick. So I can board out some number of basics for the Wastelands and then still have a reasonable land count. I think you need a composite amount of blue cards. Consign to memory is good against the colorless spells. Typically, I just don't like consign generally these days because I just find that like you constantly have to port yourself to do it unless you've designed your whole deck. When I was thinking about, okay, well, I'm going to play stock up, and that means that consign is not very good because you don't want to play stock up at sorcery speed and then find your mana that your force of your counter magic that costs mana because you can't play counter magic that costs mana anymore. If these stock ups were deduces, then I would play a lot more consign to memories because then you have Mystic Sanctuary, deduce plus consign to memory, and then that's sort of like a nice little lock against these kinds of decks. And then the value of this against Ancient Doom decks goes way up. So again, stock up. I'm just going to make them deduces in our next go. Forsake the Worldly showed there. It's too expensive. Like they need exile target artifact or enchantment plus cycling to just exist on a 1 mana spell because that's the world that we're in now. Because my removal for like their 4 drops cost 2 mana, but my removal for that costs 3 mana. So 2 mana meaning that like all of their lands tap for more than 1 mana. So like their 1 ring isn't a 4 drop, it's a 2 drop. They just are going to spend 2 lands to convert that thing where I have to play 3 lands to convert this thing. And so they just need to print exactly this card for white rather than 2 and a white. And if they need to up the cycling to be like something different or have it have another kind of effect, that's fine. But like as I need Forsake the Worldly. We need this card. We need Exile because the 1 ring doesn't lose to anything else. But like this is too expensive for what it is, but it's what we got. So we're dealing with it here. Okay, so what are we taking out? Let me see what I'm going to take out. We want the Vanishments. I'm actually thinking, is this even valuable because it doesn't deal with 1 ring and it doesn't, so I don't think I want it. The Terminus can deal with the Spawn, which is something that I am in the market for. So I'm interested in potentially keeping one, but I might cut it because maybe we just have to spend Force of Wills on it. Everything else is kind of hot. I'm interested in everything else. The Prismatic Ending, they're not a Chalice deck, so I'm going to get off of Prismatic Ending because it's too slow. And then I think Elixir of Immortality is not something that I have to worry about because this game isn't about going infinite. So we're going to keep the Thwart because we do want Mystic Sanctuary as a way to lock, so we're going to submit like this. Well, here we are, fam. 2 Force Negations and a stock up. Can't ask for more. Glaring Fleshraker is kept in check by Swords to Plowshares. So we are rolled up. This stock up is going to not come down until turn 3. But we have, fortunately, the mana to develop regardless. So did I just go through a turn? What happened? What just happened? It just went through my turn. I thought I was on the play. Did I move on the draw? I mean, I definitely lost last game. I certainly lost last game, so I don't understand what just happened. Something just happened. Something certainly happened where I don't have my turn, and that's unfortunate. But we are now in a position where I guess they turn 1 us. Can they turn 1 us? I guess they could turn 1 us. It's possible that they could turn 1 us because for some reason I didn't get my first turn. At least now we know what we're doing on our theoretical first turn, which should be our second turn. Which is, but like, man, that certainly sucked, whatever happened. That cost me getting time walked through a turn. So they get to go first and get an extra card. That one I'm clueless on, fam. The other ones, I actually made those technical punts. This one I have no idea what went down. So stock up's 2 turns away, so we're certainly pitching that. I don't think I care about. I don't know if I can care about this Cozy Command. It's going to give them a ton of mana, but they already got a ton of mana, and they're going to sculpt. Like, this card also shouldn't exist, but I don't think that that's something that I fight over. I think I need to fight over 1 ring and Karn, and I'm just not in a... I think that this is just, like, they have more... Like, if we were to put this in their threat suite, they just have more threats than we have answers, and I just don't think we can be in that place. All right. So, we're playing this. At least now we have double. I mean, if we have 2 Force Negations, if they have 2 things, like, we're definitely going to fight over 2 things. But it sure would have been nice to not have lost that first turn, because then I could hold up one of these, not have to pitch another spell to it, so I could go play this, fight over 1 thing, play this, pitching a Lorien Reveal on the other thing, and then untap and stock up. And that would have been a lot better. Or I could have just stocked up and found more gas to, like, find to pair with these 2 cards. But here we are. I think that, like, ultimately, like, this matchup is really bad, but we're also in a world where, because Urza Saga exists, I don't think you can really play a control deck that doesn't have Wasteland in the 75 anymore. We've reached the point where we're very much like in where vintage is at. Unless you are playing a deck that is itself a combo deck, you cannot. And speak of the devil, but we boarded in 2 more of these, so it's not unusual that we found it. Like I'm fighting over this. There's no way that this thing is making a construct, and then we're fighting over that. I boarded out one of my Terminuses. We're just not dealing with that. The world where Urza Saga gets to exist, if you're not like Urza Saga individually is so good against control decks that if you aren't yourself a lights out combo deck, in which case you have to respect every facet of the fact that this is Demonic Tutor, Rampant Growth, plus Grave Titan for free, then you have to respect all pieces of it, and there's just not enough tools in existence to do all of it all at once in a world where you're not just already dead. I think we've passed the Rubicon where in Legacy, like even the control decks in their 75 have to be playing 3 to 4 Wasteland, or 3 Wasteland with a recursion package, or 2 Wastelands with a recursion package. Some way to play some number of Wastelands in high volume, because similar to how like Tolarian Academy and Mishra's Workshop and every other Bazaar of Baghdad, every other broken land in Vintage means that you are just compelled to play Wasteland. I just don't think that Legacy is in too different of a spot. I think you just have to be able to play Wastelands in your control decks now, and that's what I do. I'm not going to fetch. I'm just not going to do this. This is going to be a blue card here. The one of Terminus would be really nice. I'd also be happy to find anything to get this Fleshraker off the table. I am going to spend this stock up here now. I think I want to now that this Fleshraker is in play. I would like something to. We have double counter magic for whatever their bigger play might be, and this Mystic Sanctuary is able to put the swords back on top next turn, and then I can deal with this Fleshraker. If they want to go Kozilek's Command here, then I have to fight over it because Glaring Fleshraker compels it, which is unfortunate, but so it goes. I'm just going to find another blue card to pair with this thing. Oh, wait, no, it's my turn. So this is another instance where, like, stock up sucks. Stock up, I have to play during my turn, which means that they get to Kozilek's Command. Now, had I thought about that a little bit more, okay, yeah, we just don't stock up. We just hold the thing. But, like, now that we've done that, like, again, stock up, just putting you in positions where it's like, it's just not working with the rest of the stuff. Yes, this card shouldn't exist. Yes, this card shouldn't exist, but they do, and they work in tandem together because they're a precon, and that's the world that we live in against this style of strategy now. So because they can do this type of shit at instant speed, because all of their tools are better than ours, I think that, like, stock up, again, being a sorcery speed thing, is just like, this thing costs no mana, this thing costs 3 mana. So this thing costing no mana and being an instant speed and being a kill condition when this thing happens means that this stock up is just like, it's too slow. Like, unless the format slows down, but I don't know what world we would need to be in for the format to slow down. But I think that, like, stock up is good if you're playing Ancient Tomb, and it's bad everywhere else. And I think that that's why, like, I get that, like, Bug Beanstalk gets to play Rakshas's Bargain, but man, it is very fortunate that, like, Rakshas's Bargain came in a literal set right after stock up, so that way they didn't have to decide whether or not they wanted to play stock up or Beanstalk. They just get to be like, oh yeah, we're going to play Beanstalk because it's better, and now we get Rakshas's Bargain in the stock up slot anyway that also triggers the beans, and so, like, our decision is made for us. I think that, like, outside of the Ancient Tomb decks, like, I don't think stock up is a way that we're going to be able to get another kind of control deck that isn't Beanstalk. I think that, as we've seen, I think stock up is extremely underwhelming. So, on to the next. I think against those types of decks, if you're playing a bunch of consigns and wastelands, like, I think you can do fine against them. Like, you have to over-index pretty much entirely everything about your deck to beat them, and then you have to pair it also with, like, a faster clock. Like, right now I'm playing Kefnet and Entreat the Angels, but, like, if you were to play Mentor, Mentor can close the door pretty quickly if you're playing a bunch of consigns as well, because then in those spots where they're dirtling a little bit, you just get to punch them in the teeth. I've played stuff like Geist of St. Trafford as well, which is pretty good because you can chunk them that way, because then they can't, like, try and big Kozilek's Command through because it has hexproof. And the only thing that they put in the way is some amount of Scions, but the Scions can't block the Angel, so you still get to clock them, so I liked that. So there was a while where I was playing 4 Wasteland, some number of Consigns, and 2 Geist of St. Traft as a way to, like, pivot against these decks where counterbalance wasn't good, but that was a nod to counterbalance being bad more so than the other stuff being good. The Wasteland stuff that I talked about before is certainly true. Like, I think that's a certain, like, that's a definite, like, you do need Wastelands to be able to solve the other problems, and I don't think that I'm going to sleeve up a deck without Wasteland in some number in my 75, because Urza Saga is just too much of a beating. But now that you also have that type of deck, like the Planar Nexus and Ancient Tomb decks, I still think that like the best tool against them is also Wasteland, and so you're just priced into Wasteland being part of the control package, and we just gotta accept the world that like because the format has sped up and all the tools end the game immediately if they touch, that the world of Wasteland being a necessity is upon us. And so if you want to play anything fun like Mystic Sanctuary like I do, you have to think about, okay, how do I do that? And also with the tension of Wasteland existing, because you got to play Wasteland. So this hand, we're seeing like if this were a prismatic ending in the blind, it's a lot better than Banishment with no way to set it up. Elixir of Immortality, again, like we knew that this wasn't going to be the option, but there isn't a better option yet. I'm still searching for it, and maybe we'll come around to it. But obviously, because of this, you could argue like there is a world where like you could argue like you just wait for your brainstorm or your scroll rack to like put this back because you are developing your mana. You do have a source of postures to deal with something, but because we don't know what we're doing and there's no force will here either, like we're really relying on like the source of plowshares being able to convert, and the Elixir of Immortality already effectively being a mulligan. I'm going to mulligan. All right, so this one's a little bit better. We do draw the Elixir of Immortality again, and it's the thing that I'm probably going to put back on the bottom because this Brainstorm is going to be able to help set up this Terminus if we need it. So I'm going to keep this because this Brainstorm is going to help set up this Predict and this Terminus. I'm going to put the Elixir of Immortality back. That's that. And then we're going to lead on Flooded Strand. I don't know what we're playing against. In this case, this is a position where because the hand is set up and I do want to be able to find another land, this is a spot where, depending on what they do, I might fetch for the Meticulous Archive, but it just sped through anyway, so it doesn't get to do that. Depending on what they do, because my Brainstorm is loaded to work for this Predict and this Terminus rather than helping try and find and sculpt and find a land, meaning that like if I don't find a land, I wouldn't want to be able to do another shuffle because the Brainstorm is loaded on this. This is a position where I would fetch for the Meticulous Archive in the end step as a way to sculpt to a land. I would like to find a third land, and so that's what we're going to do. You could argue getting one thing here to set up the Brainstorm, to set up the Predict and the Terminus, but they're on Polluted Delta. They haven't shown me what they're doing yet. This could be Dimir, this could be a combo deck. I don't know what they're doing yet. So rather than splurge too early, I'm going to Meticulous Archive. All of this plan gets better as our mana is developed anyway. So we're not going to do that. So this Ponder is actually interesting because that actually does give me something to do here. If I go Tundra Ponder, that helps set up to find the land and set up this Predict. So essentially what I could do is I could offload some of the load that's on this Brainstorm to solve both this Predict and this Terminus by offloading some of the load on the Predict is applying onto the Ponder. So it eases up the Brainstorm. The Brainstorm would only then need to solve for the Terminus because the Ponder gets to solve for the Predict. So, and then the Ponder can help find the land. And then if I have to shuffle, then we're back in the exact same situation that we talked about before, where the Brainstorm is still loaded to solve the problems of both these cards. So I'm going to keep that. I'm going to draw this for turn. Do I want to play around days because I don't know they're on Dimir? Yeah, because I actually don't want to shuffle my deck if I don't have to, because Predict is a card that's just going to help me convert. So you'd be like, Phil, you're wasting your mana here. What are you doing? Like, you could have done a whole bunch of these other things. No. So I do want this Brainstorm. I do want this Wasteland, depending on, because I want another land, but I would like it to be able to set up towards Mystic Sanctuary. So I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go like this. I'm going to put the Brainstorm there. And I'm going to draw this Lorien Revealed. This Lorien Revealed is a land, and it's also a shuffle effect. So if they show me action that I want this Terminus for, then I'm going to Brainstorm this stuff back on top. Terminus, Wasteland goes on the thing and then solves the Predict, and then I convert those cards. So that Wasteland is going to function as a way to help cast this Predict. And if they do anything that doesn't set up for exactly that plan, where Terminus is a relevant spell, then I'm just going to cycle and fetch it away, because I want to be able to hit my lands towards Mystic Sanctuary, and then that load is still that same load is still applied to the Brainstorm as before. That other option that could happen is they do something different. Okay, so we're playing against Nadu, so I actually think I'm going to want this Terminus, because if they do anything, I actually think what I'm going to do is the cards that are relevant in this matchup, they never actually need to run anything into a Terminus at sorcery speed, because they can just go up a bunch of cards. They don't have to deploy. So what I'm going to do is I actually think I might Brainstorm end of turn, because I want to be able to now search hard for a force effect to deal with a Teferi Time Raveler. So if they put a Teferi on the table, I just can't. There is no miracle card no miracles deck that can beat a Teferi, because it literally just says the miracle mechanic doesn't exist anymore. So what I am going to do here is I'm going to brainstorm. I do want the Wasteland because they're an Urza Saga deck, so I want that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stack the Terminus under the scroll rack. If they now do anything else, I mean, essentially, like what's going to happen is because I don't have the force effect and I don't want them to get to 3 mana for Teferi, I'm going to have to spend this Wasteland, keeping them off of 3 mana, and then I'm going to use Predict to predict away the Terminus, and then go up cards and then continue valuing that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this. I'm going to play around days, target myself. I'm going to name Terminus. Now, there's the argument to do this at, like, oh, Spell Pierce. That's cool. Wasn't playing around Pierce. So I was playing around days. I wasn't playing around Pierce. I'm also putting them pretty heavily on the Nadu, but they fetch for a second green source. So now that they've done this, now that I see Pierce, now I definitely need to Wasteland them because they're on blue-green show and tell, and that's a whole different ball game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upkeep cycle away the Terminus, getting another land, and then this brainstorm is going to help solve the problems. Again, stock up, being a little too clunky in a format that is way too fast is no good. So we're here stripping this. If they have Ancient Tomb and get to kill me, they kill me. That's just the world that we're in, is like, okay, homie had it. I'm playing 5 force effects on the main board, and they drew 1 brainstorm. So if they have it all tied up, they have it all tied up. I'm not going to worry too much about that. But again, I think that like even though it's like a position here, I'm going to cycle. Stock up again is just being real clunky. Like I just want the curve to be lower. I just need to be able to fire off my spells before I die. It's just so important. So this is nice. This brainstorm is going to be able to put back something to convert a predict. I would like to not fire it off in the face of a potential another pierce, so I'm not going to move on this brainstorm yet. But a brainstorm putting something back, I would really like it if this stock up were just to do so I could fire it off if they don't do anything, and then I wouldn't have to worry about, like, essentially the stock up just isn't a card in hand. It's totally possible that I'm just operating where I'm so used to and comfortable operating my, the Miracles deck where it's like very smooth and very lean and mostly at instant speed, and so stock up is just like a weird space. But I don't want prismatic ending, so I don't know if I want stock up goes up cards, and that's really important. I just don't know a world where I get to resolve a stock up through the Pierce deck, and then they get to just go Ancient Tomb, Force plus Veil. So Scroll Rack is going to go back because it's not setting up this isn't a Miracles matchup, so I don't need to set up Miracles, even though it does set up the Predict. It would be nice, but like, we're all blue. And then I think the prismatic ending's got to go back. Now the question is, do I want to cycle to hit a land drop, or do I want to predict the prismatic ending because I really just don't want that in my deck at all, draw the scroll rack, and then a blank? I think I want an island cycle. Okay, so I'm going to get... Is there anything that I would want on top? I would really like to start setting up my thwarts. So I'm going to put this here. I'm going to put I think I want Ponder to find action. We already have a brainstorm. Typically, it's sort of rare to put a Ponder on top. Like, typically, you would try and put other action on top. But if they don't do anything, then I get to next turn Ponder and or stock up for my free counter magic. If they don't do anything, then I get to predict away the Ponder, draw 2 cards, untap, have hopefully land to play around Pierce, stock up, and then we're off to the races that way. They have a Misty Rainforest. If they just slam a Show and Tell, which it looks like they're doing. Yep. Oh, they're stocking up. Then in response to that, I'm going to predict. Name the Ponder. Drawing 2. That's great. Hitting that land is great because that represents Mystic Sanctuary. So, like, let's say... So that Mystic Sanctuary with this Brainstorm represents an additional counterspell. So, like, let's say the stock up that I untap and cast. Let's say it finds one of my force effects. So I can force, they force back, it resolves. Fetch, Mystic Sanctuary on top, Brainstorm, pick that back up, and then that's a second. So off a single force of will, this Flooded Strand with Mystic Sanctuary represents a second force of will, and that's just a big game. So I'm not going to spend this here. I don't need to play around Pierce, so I'm going to not play my land drop until I figure out exactly what we're working with. So here's the force of will I wanted, and we have 2 lands. I don't need Source of Plowshares. I don't need to sculpt my draw, so we're just going to take another blue card, chain these. I don't care about the order right now. And then this is that position that I literally just talked about. So I'm not going to play this because I want this Flooded Strand to represent a second force of will. That way I can fight over whatever's coming. The argument now is like, oh, Phil, you could ponder. But I'm thinking that now that we are in the stock up phase of the game, that we've reached development because they missed a land drop from 2 turn cycles ago, and they just stocked up, I'm thinking that the battle is about to happen, and I'm going to need at least 2. Like, if they have their thing plus force plus Veil of Summer, then we're dead. But if they have their thing plus force, then I have double force to beat that. So we're in a world like where double counter magic can beat singular counter magic, even though it might still be dead. But this ponder needs to commit to this force of will, because after that, I need to then stock up for the follow-up battle, assuming that this is representing another force effect. So are they just going for it now? They are. Okay, so we're going to force, pitch the ponder. We have the action that they were talking about. They're going to force back, or I assume they're going to force back. I mean, they're sitting on a bunch of things, yeah. So they're going to force back. This is the exact position that we're talking about. This is going to go back on the stack. We're going to fetch here. Mystical Sanctuary. Mystic Sanctuary is going to target Force of Will. Force of Will back on top of the library. Okay. Would you like to use Mystic Sanctuary ability? I sure would. We're going to cast this Brainstorm into this. We're going to play around Daze this whole time. We're going to put back this, and we're going to put back this. And now that we found the Thwart, this is why I wanted saying earlier in the game where I was like, I want to set up this Mystic Sanctuary for the inevitable world where we get to our end game of Thwart, which is the end game that we have to get to if we're going to win this matchup. I'm setting up the Mystic Sanctuary there earlier on, where we put the Pounder back on top and then we project it away, is meaningful because now it's 2 tutors instead of 1. And now we're about to draw a Mystic Sanctuary. Mystic Sanctuary is going to put Force of Will back on top. Okay. Yes, please. This stock up is now going to find at least that Force of Will. It's going to clear that Source of Plowshares that was underneath, and then hopefully find something even better underneath. We'll start chaining these guys. Any order. And then because we have the Thwart, and I'm not pairing that with the Force of Will, I'm going to fire off this stock up. If they have a Daze, they have a Daze. I want a second Force, and I'm going to take this Predict as another blue card. Any order. Okay. So this is still not triple counterspell. This is double counterspell. I have Force pitching blue card plus Thwart and then picking this back up. Now, there's actually a world that because we have the Thwart, this is where a little bit of the synergy comes into play. If I were to now, if let's say they find another thing or they find another spell that lets them try and chain off again. I force, they force, I can Thwart, picking up the Mystic Sanctuaries. And then if I draw Scroll Rack, I've now got a full grip again. I know my pre-modern players that have played Gush and understand the Gush Scroll Rack interaction is really powerful. It's sort of similar here. I mean, you can play Thwart in pre-modern as well, and I have. And the similar interaction. Being able to stay on a low land count is really hot. So now this is great. Now we're just in the position where I have 5 plus 2. So now I actually am holding up 3 counterspells. So I can go 5 hard cast Force through Pierce, Force pitch Predict, or Thwart picking up 3 Mystic Sanctuaries, and then I'm forever. I now have forever counter magic, right? So they have 5 cards, one of which needs to be the thing. So they're going to Cunning Wish. Do I want to fight over the Cunning Wish? I don't know exactly what's in people's Cunning Wish boards right now. Let's think. Okay, so if they go Cunning Wish, they can get. What could they get? Like the only thing I really fear is like a Veil of Summer, like blowing everything out. But they just didn't spend their Ancient 2 mana to do that. Is there something else that I would care about off the Cunning Wish? I feel like if they're going to give it to me, I'm so loaded up on counter magic that like the only thing that could happen is if I let something happen that I wasn't anticipating, and then they get it, and also like they're not representing Veil of Summer there when they did it because they were holding up Ancient Tomb. So I'm just going to fire that off. I have a Mystic Sanctuaries that can put back up. If I draw Fetch Land, that's another Mystic Sanctuary. Like, I'm still holding up Pierce here through it all. So like, I think if they untapped, found another counterspell, or found like a misdirection or something to overload, I just need to make sure that the critical thing on the stack doesn't resolve. So here, I would typically go thwart is last of the party, but now that there's a force of will in the yard, I know that there's a critical target in the yard that I want. So I'm actually going to cast this, targeting that, picking up my 3 sanctuaries here. And then rather than spend this force plus blue card, because if I go natural draw, I can Mystic Sanctuary, put something on top, and then that sets up for predict, and I'll be holding up force of will. Or I could go thwart on top if I'm unsure, and then predict could target them, and then I could put the thwart back into play and then pick up the 3 more lands, and then that is a second free counter magic if I draw a blue spell. So like if I draw a blue card here, I would have force plus blue card plus thwart plus things. Elixir of Immortality is not a draw, but that, like, as much as it like is embarrassing to be like, oh, you drew Elixir of Immortality, literally any white card is exactly the same. White card is dead here, so it wouldn't have mattered there either. So here I'm going to put the thwart back on top because it gives me a second free counterspell. This force of will, being hardcast, can't play around a pierce, and this is a junction where like I could put force on top, and then force could be a thing that I could hold up later, but I can't do that around pierce. But what I could do is if they go try and play another show and tell, I go force pitch this predict. I'm not going to not play around pierce. Force pitch predict. I draw thwart, which is a single card hard counterspell, and then I'll put a Mystic Sanctuary is going to put a force will on top, and then the thwart will pick up 2 Mystic Sanctuaries plus another thing. But then I'll be able to play a 5th land, and then I won't be able to play through Pierce, but hopefully we're past the point where that would have been a relevant thing, because they would need to spend that Pierce at some other point if they already used another show and tell. So it's a lot of talking, a lot of action there, but you hopefully are seeing all of the things I'm saying about trying to keep this board as clear as possible. I'm hoping what they do is play a non-critical spell. If they play a non-critical spell, that I can trade this force of will for hardcast, I'd be interested in that, because Mystic Sanctuary can set up this predict on the following turn. So I could Mystic Sanctuary, put something on top, have 2 Mystic Sanctuaries plus something plus the thwart that I'll have drawn for turn. So here they just didn't do anything. That's even better. But the Mystic Sanctuary setting up the predict means that I can draw more cards. The thwart then picks up a bunch of other stuff, and then I can just still be super loaded. And it also still continues to play into Scroll Rack, being able to pick up everything and just having a full grip of everything that I want at all times, because we're at the stage where we're fully developed on our mana. We have a full grip of cards that could work with the Scroll Rack. And so that's a position where Scroll Rack is quite good. Let's see. So here we're drawing the thwart, Mystic Sanctuary. Still not interested in putting up cards yet. Like, I just want to, we're just tightening the cinches here, right? Like, I have 2 counter spells. I don't want to have to, like, right now they need spell plus counter magic plus thing that they're putting out the show and tell, which we know at least one of is. They've tried to show and tell twice. We know one of the cards that they have is the thing that they're going to put in off the show and tell. So is this, yes, they're going to Cunning Wish. I think this is one of those critical things. Like, I don't know. This is where I need to study up a little bit more post format. Like, what is the Cunning Wish possible to get? If we play around Pierce here, that's good. But I could hardcast this thing. They Pierce. They get the thing. They then don't have Pierce as a follow up, and then my force on the following turn, I'd be able to hardcast with this thwart. So I think they know about thwart, but can Cunning Wish, if I let that resolve, they maybe can beat it because they know about it now. So I'm going to go like this. I'm actually going to cast this because I want them to Pierce. It resolves, so they don't have, I think they would spend that Pierce if they had it, unless they have the critical juncture here. And if they don't, let's say they resolve something big, then in the upkeep I can also, and I need to find like a removal spell of some kind, like a Vanishment for like a big thing, or a Terminus for an Emrakul or whatever. I could predict away the force of will and then start searching for whatever that might be. I could also then Mystic Sanctuary for stock up to find whatever that might be. I mean, there's a lot of action. We've seen a lot of cards. We're almost halfway through the library, and all of that action that I just mentioned is still in the deck. The way that we die here is if they go Show and Tell plus Veil plus Thing as their final 3 cards. Stock up. They have 2 cards. Do I fear those 2 cards being Thing plus 3rd Show and Tell? So I guess that's the thing that we have to think about. Is this bait? And I'm not going to take it. I'm going to try and be disciplined here. I get that sucks, but we're drawing a second counterspell. So if they find, like, if their last 2 cards are Show and Tell plus Thing, that means that they need Force plus Blue card. But them going double stock up, then they can't kill me this turn. So now I'm happy to do this. And I'm happy to put a thwart here because I still have 3 lands. So Mystic Sanctuary is still going to be live to put a card back on top. So force. This is one of those instances where I'm happy to put thwart on top. It can be a hard counter spell for 4 mana next turn. Yes. Cinches are relatively in. What is the play? I'm now just considering like the Elixir of Immortality. Like, I don't know if the life gain is a thing that could matter at some point if we got down to like, Emrakul hits. But Mystic Sanctuary is just like where the engine is right now. So the Elixir of Immortality is like the type of thing where it's like you're playing against like a Wasteland deck or something. That would matter. So how many stock ups have we gone through? 1, 2. This is their 4th stock up. But they've already used 2 show and tells. 1, 2. And they've used 2 Cunning Wishes. I think I'm okay letting the stock up resolve. I just need to fade their critical juncture of their last 2 stock ups. If I can beat their last 2 stock ups, their last 2 show and tells, then next turn, like this turn, if they have it plus backup, maybe I'm supposed to fight over the stock up. Not totally sure. Again, stock up way better when you have Ancient Tomb. So here I'm going to go force pitch this thing. They have Veil of Summer. They go up a card because they get to play Veil of Summer because they're a combo deck. So now I die. Now I'm dead. Yeah, probably dead, I guess. So this is one of those. Now this is actually the first time where I'm actually interested in feedback on like what would everybody else have done? Like, would you have fought over those stock ups rather than the fact that they just had the show and tell, the 3rd show and tell? Like, of course, the stock ups is going to help them find that stuff, but like, are we just over indexed in that, like, okay, this type of like what I'm now doing of like infinite counter spells is just never actually going to be able to beat infinite cards like this stock up now, because stock up, as we've seen, is like way worse in my deck than it is with Ancient Tomb. So like, are we just in a world where, okay, stock up is not a card for control mages like me and whoever is who feels aligned with me? Stock up is actually just a combo card. And okay, if stock up's a combo card, then where do we move from there? Does that mean that like, okay, we have to move back to being the counterbalance shell or something like that? Or is it just everybody spamming like Phil, just play Beanstalk and stop trying to make something that can't work? So we don't need this. They might pivot their plan, but I don't know what it could be. Terminus is nice sometimes, like the instant speed, but I would consider again Terminus if I had Deduce in my deck. If I had Deduce, I would consider Terminus as an instant speed way to deal with now that they've showed me Emrakul, because because I have stock ups instead of Deduces. That's like not actually a plan. Like they'll just get to they'll just get to get their extra turn before I would be able to do this in my draw step. So I am going to bring in the Wastelands as my 2 cards here. They're playing green. I don't have a way to do that. I do think the surgical over a basic here. I'm getting out the basic plans because they don't go after your mana, and I know that I'm going to want Mystic Sanctuary on as soon as possible. I'm keeping the Forsake the Worldly and leaving in the Leave No Trace. As you saw when they show and tell them put in Omniscience, if in the show and tell, another reason that Mystic Sanctuary is actually pretty sweet is Mystic Sanctuary does put the trigger on the stack if you have the 3 lands. So in the old trick where like if you can put like Vendilion Click on the stack in response as a trigger, you can then respond to your trigger before they can do something that's not an instant speed. But Leave No Trace and Forsake the Worldly, both being instant, mean that if they go show and tell, you can put in a Mystic Sanctuary, create a trigger on the stack, and then actually start fighting here. If they don't have the Cunning Wish, like let's say they have the Emrakul with the show and tell or with the Omniscience, this beats that. If they have the Cunning Wish, then in response to the Cunning Wish, you would be able to then do this with a trigger on the stack. Or if you get in multiples, you can also do tricks where like this, they Cunning Wish, get the thing, target this thing. There's a bunch of different interactions. I'm talking a lot, and I know that we're sort of off it. Same thing, if Deduce were in the deck, the Vanishment, you could create a trigger on the stack, and then Deduce, put it with if you have a Vanishment on top, and then you could Vanishment the Omniscience, and that's also kind of hot. But again, that is working with Deduce is really a glue card that's holding it together, which is representative of like, if you want to be playing a deck with miracles, you really do need that kind of glue, and stock up just ain't that glue. So I'm keeping this hand because even though it doesn't have counter magic, it does have. I don't think that first off, we have Island Ponder towards 8 force effects. But also, I don't think that we're in a world where they're just going to slam. Like, they know that they have time. And since we both know that there's time, see, again, if this were a deduce, that'd be so much better. I think this is it's not going to be a shuffle because I need it. I want to be able to stack this predict. But I think that the way that I have to stack it is the stock up underneath, because I want to be able to hit these land drops, and this Wasteland is going to have to convert early, and these are going to come in tapped. So we're going to put stock up on the bottom, then Mystic Sanctuary, then Brainstorm. We are not going to use Ponder's ability. We're going to draw this. We're going to pass. The other thing that could happen is, I mean, right now I don't want to have to play the Mystic Sanctuary. It's like, I'm going to play the Wasteland. They're going to play a land. I'm going to play the Wasteland, and then we're going to have to make a decision on whether or not this Wasteland is going to help cast this predict, or if this Wasteland is going to strip their first thing. Here, they're playing a basic islands, which is helpful in a way that it solves our problem for us. Like, if they just go Island Ancient Tomb and kill us, okay, they go Island Ancient Tomb and kill us. I think we're going to do this. They're going to have to think about their play. Now, you could argue, fulfill, like, see, now that they've done this, they would need to go show and tell pedal. The argument now is playing around Pierce. I think I am. I don't need to bluff anything. I'm going to predict target myself. We're going to name the stock up. And then I'm going to try and draw into one of my 8 force effects. Kefnet in it. But Kefnet is still in the deck because it is a lock. First off, it is my way to win the game. But also, we get into the positions of once Mystic Sanctuary is online, Mystic Sanctuary plus any card draw effect. Again, where we would want deduces, lets you copy up on your thing. So I can instant speed like another force effect. I could instant speed any thing that Mystic Sanctuary can put on top. So this Wasteland is really only for this thing. Like, I'm not trying, we're not getting cute. And drawing this is actually pretty nice because it lets us set up for a Mystic Sanctuary. So what I'm going to do here is, do I want to brainstorm first? You guys, like, Lorien Revealed is always an enticing thing. I think I'm not going to get cute. I think we aren't playing to, because we're not playing to deduces, I'm just stripping this thing. Get out of here. I'm just not interested in, like, if they want to think that I'm going to do something into their Veil of Summer, nah, dog. I'm going to hold this up because they certainly have Carpet of Flowers in the deck. If they didn't cast it last turn for whatever reason, but if they do have Carpet, I'm leaving up this Leave No Trace. I just also don't exactly know what this brainstorm is loaded to do. Like, yes, I need to find some of the 8 force effects in my 47 cards that are left. But to what degree that means, I just don't know where. I don't know yet what this brainstorm is loaded in doing. In this spot, I am interested in brainstorming because I want to stack for this God Eternal Kefnet as we get lower. In this case, I'm drawing way too many lands. But I also want to be able to play around Spell Pierce there. So they're going to stock up. That's fine. I mean, not fine, like, we're dead. But I now have, like, if they don't go for it next turn, in 2 turn cycles from now, I'm going to have the means discarding Veil of Summer. Okay, so we're definitely dead. I don't even know if I should talk anymore for them. They're discarding Veil of Summer. Now, either they don't have another green source, or they're just so loaded on blue cards and force effects that they don't need it. Now, should we have drawn one of our many force effects that have been available to us in all of these cards that we've seen? I feel like 8 force effects in the top 15 cards, you should find at least one of them. But then there's the breaks. So I'm still representing, like, that's the thing in this matchup where it's like, I'm still representing the thing. They're just going for it, which is unfortunate. So I'm going to fetch here because Mystic Sanctuary, we're going to do the Mystic Sanctuary trick that we just talked about. So I don't need to show them Pyroblast yet because we're not there. But Mystic Sanctuary, so here's where we're at. Show and tell, I can cheat in this God Eternal Kefnet. And that means that Mystic Sanctuary next turn, putting something in, if I were to draw a cantrip, I can do something at instant speed. I think, though, what's more important is we're going to Mystic Sanctuary, we're going to target our, depending on what they put in, we're going to target stock up because Vanishment can't deal with Emrakul, but Terminus can. But if they do Omniscience into Emrakul, I get to beat that with, now I'll have double Leave No Trace, so I'll have 2 layers. So I'm going to go, yeah, we're going to do the Mystic Sanctuary line, and then we'll rebuild with stock up. So this thing is going to target stock up. With that on the stack, we're going to leave no trace, hit this Omniscience. They fight over it. We leave no trace again. Okay. So that'll resolve. Still with the Mystic Sanctuary trigger on the stack, leave no trace. You'll love to see it. So now, if they have Emrakul, we are going to use this stock up. Okay, so they're digging. Do they not have it yet? Do they just... If they don't have it, then I just get the Mystic Sanctuary, stock up 4, leave no trace, and put that back on top. Interesting. See, if they're... Now that they're on... They're Atraxing, this Vanishment with a Predict might have actually been pretty interesting. We actually can hold off the Atraxa relatively well. God Eternal Kefnet can block if we ever need to get there, and then it just goes back on top of the library. And then, Mystic Sanctuary plus God Eternal Kefnet is really hot. They don't need mana, so that guy they have Omniscience in play right now. So this Carpet is what I was thinking about for Leave No Trace before, but beyond that, that's irrelevant. Intuition, just getting Emrakul means that the game is over. Is that where we're at? So this is the matchup where I'm actually interested in hearing some feedback on. All of the previous matches were a little less than. I know what the issues are there, and it was stock up. In this matchup in particular, where you're seeing how much better stock up is in this kind of shell versus this kind of shell, I'm more curious into, like, what are the ways to now solve for blue-green Omniscience, because that is a deck that, like, there isn't a solve for, and they're already pre-boarded to beat up on, like, the gentlemans of the game. Like, getting to play main deck Veil of Summer plus stock up, meaning that your card advantage is better than any non-Beanstalk card advantage. If there is actually anything reasonable to try and beat that deck that isn't just moving into Beanstalk, I mean, at the end of the day, when we go into any major event, I'm going to play Beanstalk. But that's a matchup that I don't know if there's a solve, because the combination between Veil of Summer pre-board, then Carpet of Flowers post-board, but then Stock Up's main board, but then they also get to move into more counter magic on top of their Veil of Summers that were already beating you post-board. It just seems like sort of impossible, because they just don't have to worry about playing white cards. Like, because they're just not interested in interacting outside of winning the game, which, honestly, a hotter strategy. Less of a puzzle to solve, I think, but a hotter strategy for winning, which is also important. So, gonna have to think on that one. Interested in feedback on that matchup, but definitely want Deduces. And let me know if you're excited to see Deduces in this type of list, or if, like, you actually just, like, Phil, just start playing Beanstalk and testing that, and we can see something legitimate, because that's also a reasonable thing for this type of content. Okay, would you like to play for us? Sure would. All right, we're keeping this. We have to assume that white cards have text, and we have the brainstorm to set it up. So I think that other than the stock up and maybe some sideboard changes to align with Deduces, I would change this to Deduces, and then I would figure out from there, I would add more Consigns, because Consigns works with the Mystic Sanctuary Deduce plan, and maybe cut some of the additional, like, ancillary cards. Like, I don't think you need a second Hydroblast once you're in that space, because you can operate on lower mana. We're going Island Ponder, boys. I want to keep none of this. I'm looking for a Predict. I want to be able to go up cards, or a Force of Will, so I don't die. And because if there was, like, Chafe Predict, I probably keep it. If it was Chafe Force, I probably keep it. If it's neither of those, I don't keep it. So another Polluted Delta gamer. All right, Wasteland is cool, but not exactly what we're interested in. I am going to play this Flooded Strand, because I do want to clear some of this away. If this Terminus is not a relevant card, then I am going to want to fetch it away. It will make potential Predicts uncomfortable, in that, like, I will fetch away and then have to restack, but I have a second Brainstorm to take some load off of that. I guess now, like, okay, chat, this is now an interesting take. Polluted Delta showing you Hedge Mage, you have to assume now that it's blue-green, right? It's blue-green on Omniscience. I was putting it on Nadu before, but Polluted Delta into Hedge Maze was the exact same play pattern as what the blue-green Omniscience was last time, and I don't know if... I guess I have to look at and see what fetches Nadu plays, or if there's a fetch count in the is indicative of one or the other, because I think now that Polluted Delta... All right, it's Underground Sea, so it's neither of them. I guess I don't know what I'm talking about at all. So we're just Beanstalk. So this is a Beanstalk matchup. So I have to play around Bowmaster now, which I can do. This... Fortunately, what's cool is Wasteland getting to go like this. So do I want to go after green, or do I want to go after black? I think that the black is good for Bowmaster and Beanstalk. Bowmaster As the Hedge Maze helps cast Beanstalk. Clearly, they're representing the Bowmaster here. So what's going to happen is they're going to cast Bowmaster, and then I'm going to Brainstorm, put Terminus back on top, and then I'm going to sweep it up next turn, which means that I'm not going to be able to do this fetch. So what's going to happen is they're going to go. I'm going to Wasteland. I'm going to choose the color in a second, but I'm going to Wasteland. They're going to cast Bowmaster. In response, I'm going to fetch and then Brainstorm, put Terminus on top, and then go from there. And the question now is, do I want to go after green or do I want to go after black? I think because black is in there for their removal spells, and I don't care about the removal spells, I'm more served going after their green source. So here, we got Bowmaster. I'll let you waste your mana. I don't need this in my main phase. They're just not going to use it. They're just letting me have it. Wait, what is going on? All right, I guess I just don't know what's going on anymore, chat. I don't know what's happening anymore. Well, if that's the case, I'm not going to fire off this Brainstorm. If they just want to play a holding pattern on Bowmasters, then I'm going to let that happen. I'm certainly not going to start speed rolling through when they don't have a Beanstalk on the table. I'm hitting land drops. I have no qualms with just letting us neither of us use our mana. That's fine. Like, I thought we were going to have a huge cool stack interaction, and Bowmaster's a piece of horseshit. So have to have a plan for that. But if they want to end step Bowmaster here, okay, fine. Then I'll just fire off the Brainstorm and do exactly the same thing. Like, the Wasteland was just meant to compel the action. But if they don't want to take action, neither do I, my dude. I also have no interest in taking any action. We can both just sit here and play out lands, and I will beat you because that's what my deck is designed to do. He says as he's going 0-4. If we continue to play draw go, I am interested in, what do we got? We got Rakshas's Bargi. We got a little Rakshas's Bargi here. All right. Here we're going to Brainstorm because now they're tapped out and I'm not going to walk into the thing. Great. We're going to put Island, Terminus. We have Force. I'm not going to force this Rakshas's Bargain. I'm just going to try and keep up with it with stock up. I am going to fetch, though, if they don't show me anything for this Terminus to convert with. Even if they do, I might fetch and get rid of this Terminus because they're going to only land single threats. And if they play a Bowmaster to get cleaned up or whatever, this is not a matchup where Terminus is going to shine. Because they're not going to deploy multiple threats all at once. They're going to deploy singular threats, in which case Vanishment is better. So I might even just fetch this away regardless of if they show me something, because we're just so loaded on resources and we're in a stage of development where I'd rather the board is just a distraction while we do other things. They can certainly Lorien reveal. They're going to get another trop, great. So if they play Beanstalk, I'm certainly going to fight over it, and they're going to fight over it back. But then we're just going to do our Mystic Sanctuary trick like we've done before. Murktide Regent. All right. Well, if they're going to Murktide, then I guess we don't have to move. Not moving is pretty sweet, isn't it, fam? So yes, we'll show them this Terminus. I don't need to do anything in response to it. They're just going to let this resolve. There's no reason to pick your battle here when we are all both so loaded on resources. This Terminus, and also this is back in their deck, so they'll draw it at some point in this game. We're drawing our decks. If they fight over it, I would be appalled, because then I just Mystic Sanctuary and get to put it back on top. So just play another fetch. No reason to move yet. They are holding up mana. I don't need to know if I need to care about Pierce. I guess there's a world where I could fetch 2 different colors, but I really I'm willing to do that for one because I want Mystic Sanctuary, but then I don't know if I have to do it for another. But I don't know. This is the last time stock up's going to be on my deck, so let's try it for science. If they have Wasteland in their deck, it's going to get caught by they're going to get teased into using it here. If I get blown out by a Pierce, I get blown out by a Pierce. I don't know how many spell pierces people are playing that matter. If they want to play, if they wanted to fight over on Force, I'm not worried about that because in the way where they're Pierce trades for my stock ups, they have Rakshas's Bargain and Beanstalk. If I can fight over the Beanstalk, the way that this game goes late is Lorien Revealed's back mode comes online, and we're clearly going to get there. And so I'm not really too worried about that. Of course, the Wasteland, just as we talked about, they just get snagged into looking at this. They're oh, off-color fetch. I don't care about this. This is just for prismatic ending game ones, and then it's post-board. It's for Power Blast. I'm happy that you guys are saying that I'm talking about something happening and then it happening is kind of cool. There's some nod there. Here's a world where maybe they got Bowmaster, maybe they got something. I want to start getting into the Mystic Sanctuary stage of this game. If they're not going to compel any action, I'm just gonna like start doing this loop. And this loop would also be fine with the deuce. I'd be happy to be going like they're not if they were to trade a Pierce with a deuce, it makes it really awkward for them because it feels bad. But like if I did deuce for 2 cards or stock up for 2 cards, like yes, this is bigger selection, but this costs a lot more and it puts you in a lot tighter positions. Yes, in this position, Mystic Sanctuary for stock up is strong, but like okay, like is it stronger than what it would be? Like we're in a holding pattern here. If I want to play around Pierce, then I would play a Mystic Sanctuary. If I want to just draw out a Pierce, I would do this and then put stock up again on top. But I think if I go like this, I think I can go Mystic Sanctuary for, let's get another Brainstorm. Brainstorm just always more potent, and we're looking at volume this game. And then there's the argument, like, if Pierce is going to pierce something, then, like, is Pierce better piercing this lower end revealed than it is this stock up? And I think the answer is yes, but if they have Bowmaster, then I just walk into that and that'd be bad. So let's just stock up. Stocking up around Pierce, around Bowmaster. We'll take another one of these guys. And then the question now is, are we at the stage of the game where I'm going to want to be rack-a-lacking? No, I think I'm just going to go this. We have Brainstorm. Our hand is quite good. And I do want a prismatic ending because they're going to stick a Beanstalk at some point, and then when they win, when I go force, they go force, they Beanstalk, go up a card, this prismatic ending is going to have to catch it immediately, unless they have multiple force of wills, in which case I would just want to ponder for more force effects instead of that, in which case I'm talking myself into doing this, that, so I want to search for that. We want the Brainstorm rack, and then I don't want to see this prismatic ending. And now the question is this force going to this ponder walks into this Bowmaster, and I don't need that, so this force is going to commit to this ponder. I don't know, man. I'm playing fucking nonsense blue cards. Like, they may very well be like, oh yeah, like, dude's got counterspell up or some shit. So it's at 5 cards. This will put him to 7 cards, then go to 8 cards. But I mean, I'm not fighting over bargains. It's maybe arguable that you should fight over bargains. It's also possible that, like, once I'm in the deduce world, like, part of my board just becomes a bunch of flusters. Like, if we're in a world where Rakshasa's Bargain is in the Beanstalk decks and then Stock Up is in the Ancient Tomb decks, then Fluster becomes really hot. And Fluster is actually really good in a deduce predict deck because you draw a lot of those. You essentially counterpunch by, like, playing the draw spell into the Fluster, and then also, like, Mystic Sanctuary deduce into Fluster is really good. And so I could see a world where I just, like, start bringing back in Fluster Storms to deal with Rakshasa's Bargain and stock ups now that, like, both the control decks, the combo decks, and then the other stuff just doesn't matter. So now we're going to get here into a position where we're going to force, he's going to force, he's going to, like, I go force, they force back, Beanstalk goes up a card, engine in play, and then the game is over. And that's unfortunate, but that's what we're going to walk into. The other thing I could do here is I could Brainstorm, knowing that we still have a bunch of white cards in our deck. I could Brainstorm, they go Bowmaster, tapping them off of Pierce, and then I can go force this thing. They still get to go force plus a thing. I resolve the thing, but now they've committed their mana to the board, and then Brainstorm hopefully helps set up the white card so I can go find the white card, deal with the Bowmaster, or set up a Vanishment to deal with the Beanstalk plus find predict. There's a lot of different implications that could go here. The only sure thing that happens is, regardless of what permutation happens, I go force, they go force, and the game is over because this card is broken. So I think what I'm going to do first is I'm going to bait that Bowmaster and I'm going to Brainstorm. And it, maybe they're disciplined enough to let it go because they know that this is the only thing that matters if they're a good Beanstalk player. A good Beanstalk player is like, nothing else matters. This is the only thing that matters, and as long as I have this, the game is over. So they may not move. They're thinking about it, though. And then they let it go. Okay, so found the white card for the Bowmaster if it were to come in that sequence that I was talking about. But it's not there. So this Lorien Revealed getting a nice shuffle is going to be cool. And I think that because of that, I want to put the Elixir on the bottom, and then I want to sift something away. This Source of Plowshares is nice, but, like, they haven't committed the Bowmaster yet, and because they haven't committed it yet, I'm okay putting it back and then finding it later off of a stock up. But this Lorien Revealed is going to fetch Mystic Sanctuary. I'm going to fight over this. They're going to fight back. They're going to win the game. But I have a Mystic Sanctuary off of this Lorien Revealed that can put back either a Terminus if they decide to commit that way. And now that they haven't, I'm going to go Mystic Sanctuary, probably look for I don't know if I'm putting Ponder on top to keep digging, or if I stock up first. I might stock up first and then Mystic Sanctuary after the fact, depending on what I find off the stock up. But like, as you can see, like the simple interaction of cast my True Drop, I force it, you force back. This goes up the card to replace the Force of Will, and now the game is over because this engine is online. Is just way too strong. So if they play another Murktide here, I could draw the swords rather than cycle. I could stock up and then swords, or swords and then stock up for the follow-up Force of Will that I certainly have after bargaining. But we'll see. It depends on what they decide to commit to the table. Now that they have the Beanstalk, nothing else matters in the game. So like, if they put something into play and I deal with it, it's just like sort of a red herring. Like, it is an irrelevant part of this game. Beanstalk is the only thing that is relevant to this game. But now that they've put Force of Will on top of their deck, if they just pass, then I'm interested in cycling and finding a predict. So we'll see if they don't. If they cantrip right now and just put the Force of Will in their hand, this game is just hard locked. I mean, it was hard locked before when we went Force Beanstalk hit, but now it's certainly hard locked. So they've done this. They've drawn. Force of Will is back on top. The game is now assuredly over. But I'm going to draw the Swords to Plowshares and make them do it anyway. And then, hey, we'll put some stock ups to the desk. We'll see if, like, recurring infinite stock ups is actually a way to go over the top of Beanstalk. It's certainly not, because Beanstalk is too good. But if they force this now, go up the card with the trigger on the stack. Okay, so we drew the swords, so we don't need a second. I am interested in predict. And Vanishment is way worse. So if I take Predict and Vanishment, I could also take Brainstorm and Vanishment. But I think we're past that point. This is just going to be too good knowing that there's a Force in hand. I think I just have to take the Raw card, and then I guess I could also take the Brainstorm to set up for the Mystic Sanctuary that I'm about to put on top of my deck, and then the Predict is just another, it would be as though it were another Raw spell, like stock up. So I could take Brainstorm, Predict, Swords this thing, they force it. I can then cycle Mystic Sanctuary, Brainstorm, Swords again. But again, that's not solving the problem. Like, the problem is Beanstalk. So I have to think about how to beat Beanstalk, not this Murktide, even though the Murktide is the thing that, like, actually says, oh, now you're dead. I think the answer is, also, I'm not worried about clock. If you're freaking out about clock, I don't give a shit. Like, I've learned that stock up shouldn't be in the deck. Now I'm trying to figure out, like, how to actually solve this matchup. And typically, like, this slot has to keep up with this, but you have to be able to remove this. So let's get, I mean, Brainstorm is certainly it. And now it's a matter of, am I taking Vanishment to put this back on top, or am I taking the Predict? And I think the answer is that the load is too high, but I have to deal with the Beanstalk. Beanstalk's just too good because nothing else matters. I'm going to keep repeating myself on that. Yeah, I think the answer, I'm just going to, let's try and go against my better judgment and load up. So I'm going to force that action. They're going to trade 1-for-1 with this here. So I would think. But, like, there's this position where, like, this is part of also why, like, you sort of need prismatic endings in your deck if you're playing this type of deck. You have to have prismatic endings. Prismatic ending for 2 mana can hit the Beanstalk. Even though you're down the card, you can at least remove the engine, and then you can sort of deal with everything else. But as long as Beanstalk has Beanstalk on the table, like, nothing is relevant. Like, we're taking game actions, like they're thinking about the Swords to Plowshares. It does not matter. Like, they could just fire off their force on the Swords to Plowshares and go up the card, and they have a Beanstalk on the table. Literally spew your cards, my dude. Like, they gave that to me. I don't think they should have. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's nice that they did, because now this game gets to continue a little bit because my life total is not actually at 0. But, like, in every other world, like, they could just, I mean, we just have to get in a place where, until I can find an answer to this Beanstalk, I'm committed to just stocking up. Now the question is, I could see a world where there's Bowmaster down, so I'm just going to fire off this Brainstorm now. Lorien Revealed is good. I want that, so I'm going to put Ponder, Lorien Revealed, mill the Ponder. If they're playing Thoughtseizes, they're going to Thoughtseize, take a stock up. I'm not worried about that. I'm not going to bury both stock ups because I don't want to mill one away. So if they have Thoughtseize, Thoughtseize is going to take a stock up no matter what. So I'm fine with them seeing 2 stock ups. Rather than the Lorien Revealed, because the Lorien Revealed represents Mystic Sanctuary, which lets them see a whole bunch more information. Like they could see, oh, he has access to everything in his graveyard now. So like if they like had Thoughtseize and they were looking at Thoughtseize in the Beargoyf and saw that I had a Lorien revealed, then that would be bad for me because they could go, he has access to a Terminus or to a Source of Plowshares. I need to strip that if I'm tapped out and I can't cycle it. So Lorien revealed goes on top. So here we have plenty of Source of Plowshares in our deck. I don't feel the need to commit to that yet. But I am interested in predicting away this Ponder because if they want to Bowmaster into that, then I'm cool spending this to get a Terminus and then sweeping all of that up. So we're going to start here because I want to induce a Bowmaster if they have it. I also think like we know that they have a Force Wheel in their hand. They can just spew the Force onto literally anything. Nothing matters. Like I understand that like, you know, that might be hyperbolic, but in this type of in the control matchup where it is just raw cards, like just resources matter, this is worth an entire library. An entire library. So yeah, they've committed the Bowmaster. So Bowmaster's going to get in. It's going to get in for damage. The game is like, I don't think life total matters at all. Like, yes, it matters in the sense that like I'm dying, but like they have this on the table. This game is already lost. Until this is removed, the game can't be won. So taking an additional point of damage for an extra card off this predict and then getting chunked here is totally fine. Naming this Ponder. And that's just allegation. Like I'm way behind on every axis right now. Bowmaster getting another thing and then pinging me here. Like I have the representation of like this Terminus in hand, and this Brainstorm is going to chunk me for an additional 3 damage off this Bowmaster, but I am going to be able to clear this board, and the life totals in that regard is just not a relevant factor until this is off the table. Like I'm cool just having my life total get wrecked. It is like the 4th most important thing that I care about at this point. But now that we're going to get our 4th Mystic Sanctuary and Thwart is live, like we are in, you know, like we got it down. And for some reason, I guess I pressed the wrong button and went through my turn again. So we're here. I'm sorry about that, fam. That was a position where, like, in this position, don't get me wrong. Like, I could cycle this Mystic Sanctuary, Brainstorm away, Terminus away this board, and it's all good. This is different now because my life total is going to get actually cut in half. So I'm not actually going to have time to clear this and resolve this. But the learning thing here is if you were like, oh, Phil, like we just did the plan. Like I did this, brainstormed here, Terminus, got rid of this board, there's still Beanstalk plus literally anything. And that's enough. So it did not matter here in this position because my deck is not, the deck as it's currently set up with stock ups is not set up to do all of that action and deal with the Beanstalk. Because stock up requires too much time. Although stock up against Bowmaster, obviously great. But I think stock up and Miracles certainly, I do have an altered set. I was excited to play them in paper, but that's going to be they're now going to be just confined to vintage because this is just not the card that Miracle wants, even though this card exists and this card sucks. So they're thinking on this Ponder. All right, and now it's my turn. I should have end step cycled there. I knew what the plan was going to be, but we're still drawing to another Terminus. We're drawing to things like I would really still love to solve this problem. But so let's find the 4th Sanctuary. Terminus on top, sure would. Now there's the argument that like, oh, you can stock up before doing any of these plays. Like walking into Pierce, like now that I misclicked and I'm down to dead, I'm compelled to do this thing. And they have the Force. I have the Thwart to beat the Force, but I'm just not interested in like losing to another Pierce or something in the line that I'm now committed to because of that misclick. So they're going to do this. In their upkeep, I'm going to Brainstorm. I'm going to go to 3. If they Force here, that's kind of interesting. I would like to reveal this Terminus. So Forsake the Worldly is my way to deal with the Beanstalk, which is great because now we can solve that problem. They're going to Force here. I'm going to Thwart. Scroll Rack is going to be a banger. I'm going to put back the 2. I'm going to put back Ponder, stock up, because I want to be able to draw one of the stock ups. But then I want Ponder. I probably should stack it the other way. Keep the Ponder and not the stock up. So, gonna cast this. Gonna play it for a white. They're gonna Force here, which I need them to do because I want to be able to forsake this thing. So with that draw on the stack, if their last card is Pierce, then I have to Thwart it. So we're gonna go Forsake the Worldly, hit this thing. So now they can't. We know that like they don't have another Force effect because they don't have 2 cards. So the Beanstalk card draw happens. They Force here, but I'm not going to let that resolve. I'm going to Force returning 3 Mystic Sanctuaries here. The engine is live. And don't forget, we time marked ourselves in this match. But now that, like, this match is now winnable because the Beanstalk is off the table. Now I get, like, there's a lot of action happening, but, like, this is all relevant action now because the Beanstalk isn't there. Like, finding that for sake, this was actually the critical juncture for this matchup. Unfortunately, they're making a concession to like other decks by playing Barrowgoyf, and I'm playing white cards. So like if you think of these cards like Barrowgoyf as like the white card for them as the actual white cards are in Miracles, then we're here. They if they have Pierce, the game is over. If they have another, what else could they have here? What are they doing? Is there another just a hard force? Okay, so they drew Force of Will off of their Beanstalk draw. So the last Beanstalk draw was a force because they would, if it wasn't, they would have just cast it against the Beanstalk because they can just, they win if they have Beanstalk here. So I think I'm just dead now because we're dead because they have force on thwart and I time walked myself, so that was it. So if I didn't time walk myself, maybe there was something here, but like I think like the I just need to be more indexed for what this matchup is and for what the other stuff is. So I think this is like, even though this is an O5 league and it was like what we implied, I think there's argument to be made that the first matchup, if I didn't misclick, we can get there. The second matchup, if stock up were just deduces, there's like, we can see how like that game is locked up. Or that match would be locked up if I wasn't clunked, if I actually could have converted any of those spells. If like stock up just literally was deduce and that's in a bunch of those spots, we get there. Against a blue-green, there's no way. I get that like we're already talking here. I'm just like not set up for this matchup, and I'm down on time. We're gonna play it out, but like against blue green, I certainly need a way to solve that problem, and I think it's gonna be Flusterstorm, and then I just need a way to beat the Veil of Summer, and I have to think about that because typically the way to beat Veil of Summer previously was to just leave Counterbalance on 1, but if we're not playing Counterbalance in this format, then we got to figure that out. So Entreat will come in. Wasteland is not good enough in this matchup, so I'm taking that out. The Kefnet is great. I'm bringing in the Leave No Traces because this is what they're for. They're going to bring in their Carpet of Flowers, and that's great. I actually am interested in Surgical in this matchup. It sounds weird, but it's like if you can catch one Beanstalk and then cut Beanstalk off, oh man, is it a whole different world. Like you just got to be able to get the Beanstalk out of here. So Elixir of Immortality is my life gain and a way to like not deck, but like I think that the way we're going to be not interested in that as we go. This is just another Beanstalk answer. I'm willing to over-index to solve the Beanstalks. So I got 66 cards, so something needs to come out. The Vanishment is probably the thing that comes out. They're not on the Leyline Binding version, even though that's more answers that I would like to have for Beanstalk. I just don't think that we're really there. You can then also argue that some number of Predict should come out. I'm going to leave. I want to be able to leave them in because I want to be able to go up on cards here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to board out more lands because I don't think they're going to go after my mana. I guess I don't want to board out the plains. I'll board out the island. Prismatic Ending is soft, but I think I need it. I certainly want thwart. All right, I'm board out some number of prediction. Respect Bowmaster. I do want all of the card draw I can draw though. I would keep in, if these were deduces, I would keep in the deduces over the predicts. It's possible that because this isn't a miracle game, I should board out the scroll racks and leave in the predicts. I think that's actually maybe better. Just get rid of all of the cute stuff. If that's the case, maybe I just leave in the basic. I don't want another Terminus. The scroll rack can be good in that it gets around Bowmaster, so I'll leave in one scroll rack. And that's also probably the correct number if you were going to play any number of this. Don't play any number of this, but if you were, it's probably 1. Because otherwise you're just diluting your deck with bad cards. But like I could see the argument for 1 scroll rack, particularly in a Bowmaster world. And if we're moving away from stock up back onto deduce, then scroll rack seems good. Okay, so getting back to the matchup spread. Blue-green Omni Show. Clearly I need to solve for that. I think the against this deck, you just need to be able to over-index to beat Beanstalk, and I guess it's arguable that like maybe some number of Spell Snare post board just to respect this matchup. I think Spell Snare sucks, but if the blue-red decks, and I was thinking about this before, I think we talked about it on the cast at one point, if the Corey Steel Cutter is going to also become live, as something that is valuable, then like now you have Bowmaster, Beanstalk, and Quarry Steel Cutter as like 3 major cards that you like would much rather counter on the stack than let resolve. So you can maybe like argue for a Spell Snare and maybe argue for a Spell Snare main board if that becomes popular enough. I don't think it is. I don't think we're there yet, but it's possible that it's a sideboard card at this point. So this doesn't have an answer to a Beanstalk, but it does have Ponder, and it doesn't have a way to go about cards, and we're just like good on hitting our land drops. I'm just cool like going Island Ponder. I'm not going to lead on a basic. I just don't think I'm like in an ideal world I get to have that thing. The basic is the thing that the brainstorm that I'll be able to predict away at some point. I mean, you could argue that like they're on like a loam waste package. Like if I want to respect that, I guess I could because I have basics here. Yeah, I guess might as well do that. Like we're playing in time. Let's do a little of that testing. But I would really like just to find one of my 8 force effects this time around. Or I could find that stuff. So I'm down to keep the Vanishment. I'm down to keep the Forsake the Worldly because that solves for Beanstalk. So I'm not going to use Ponder's ability. I'm going to use this or this to fetch away. The Lorien Revealed can fetch away both if they commit nothing. If they just go island, if they do like other island Ponder here, then I'll fetch in the upkeep because I don't have a play, and then I'll draw. If they just want to go Meticulous Archive, or Meticulous Archive, just like a Surveil land, that's fine. I'm going to cycle this. I'm not going to draw the Vanishment now. I don't think they're going after my mana, and I'm now off of that plan because I want this Sanctuary to be able, or this Flutterstrand to be a Mystic Sanctuary. So I'm just going to find me a Tundra, draw for turn, find a Force. That's great. So this is a world where I'm not happy to be in this world. Like I can hit land drops, like I can fight over the Beanstalk. Like even though this is an answer to a Beanstalk, I would like to not have to use it on a Beanstalk. Like I'm forcing a Beanstalk. Like no matter what, like if they go turn 2 Beanstalk, like what will happen is like they'll go Force, I'll go Force. The game will end because they have a Beanstalk and the engine has gone up a card to my Force. But if I can immediately then follow it up with a Forsake, like they would need the second Force and the game is ended. So it's like I'm just very much back-footed, but the game isn't necessarily over if we're indexed in that way. So if they go Beanstalk, I Force, they Force, and you're compelled to Force because if you don't and you want to save your answer and then back up the answer, then they get to go multiple Forces and draw multiple cards and the game is ended. So like you cannot, if you have the option to let a Beanstalk or to fight a Beanstalk on the stack, you have to. You must. Because otherwise, anything after the fact, it will bury your under too many cards, even if you do manage to remove it from the table. So, like, you could have removal spell plus triple Force, and you're like, well, I want to use this removal spell to line up the thing. Don't. Like, they will always have their backup for, like I'm going to force this. They're going to force back. They're going to, like, recoup the card on the Beanstalk, and Beanstalk's going to have an engine in play. They're going to win the game because this interaction has happened. But I'm going to now follow up exactly with Forsake the Worldly, and if they just had natural Beanstalk plus double Force, double blue card, the game was going to be over no matter what happened because that's an unbeatable hand. But if I get to remove this now, then I'm only down a card, and we have enough card advantage between both of our decks that like either of us could overcome coming the being down a single card. We could not overcome being down a full engine. So this being a full engine, gotta go. And it's also like this is like that type of thing is an oppressor on the format. Like I want to be able to try and like play like one-off cutesy shit. Like I feel like I need to play a Forsake the Worldly in my deck because I have to be able to get rid of the One Ring as well. But like unless you go into 4 color for Prismatic Ending, which is just like an impossible feat, like you go into 4 color, in which case like you just have a really shitty mana base, and then in order to solve like the problem of having a really shitty mana base that can't support basics because you need to play 4 color to solve for the One Ring issue, like then you would just never be Delver. And if you want to try and solve for that problem, then you have to just essentially move into another deck that can support the 4 color Prismatic Ending. Like you would need to like move into like Mox Diamond. And at that point, you're on like Mox Diamond Life from the Loam. And that's just a whole different strategy. Like once you get into that place to like try and make Prismatic Endings powerful enough for everything that you want to do. And at that point, you should probably just play a better Mox Diamond deck. So this might be an unsolvable puzzle. Like the constraints on the format now might just be such that it's an unsolvable puzzle. But like I would like to see if it is solvable. Like I think that there's enough overlapping with some tools, but like it ain't stock up. And typically a way that you would have your engine as to like, keep the cinches in is Counterbalance. But Counterbalance is too slow in this world. Like Counterbalance would need to cost 1. Or Counterbalance would need to have the cantrip clause that Beanstalk has. So like if I could play Counterbalance that cantrips, like maybe I could keep up with Beanstalk, but otherwise we're not in that world. So I think that like before moving into any of that other stuff, like this is an interesting experiment. I think the scroll rack as a one of maybe is an interesting experiment with the whole deduce package. And then I'd be interested to see if like instead of playing prismatic ending, if there's a way to play vanishments in that spot. But like vanishment really requires predict. But I like being able to just stay in 2 colors. Like I am playing the red splash though because I'm hedging for prismatic ending but prismatic ending I would leave as a one of in my deck just to solve like Tameo. But I would be really happy to not have to play a red splash and just play a straight blue white mana base and just support a bunch of Forsake the Worldlies to solve the One Ring issue and be able to play at instant speed and then have more cycling, and cycling helps support like vanishments and stuff. So this Mystic Sanctuary putting Force of Will back on top implies to me that there's just another Beanstalk coming, because I am certainly fetching here for this Lorien revealed on my Mystic Sanctuary, and we're just going to try and go up raw cards. And if they have the Pierce, they have the Pierce. I'm interested in, just because I'm over indexed on mana sources now, we have 2 Mystic Sanctuaries that can just be 2 Lorien revealed. And I'm happy to take it. So I'm going to let them see that I have this. Like, it would be nice if I had the luxury to be like, oh yeah, I'll ponder and pick my spot and find the thing. But like, if they just play Beanstalk, like I have to just get ahead on cards while I can. And if they have all the tools, they have all the tools. Now, if they're drawing Force of Will here, then they get to go Beanstalk plus Force, and then that's going to, be relative parity with the Lorien Revealed. So I was down a card. Lorien Revealed just plus 2'd me, so now I am even. So they have Force plus, and they must have blue card if they put a Force on top. But they haven't done anything else. I guess there's rationale, like perhaps they have Bowmaster, maybe? Like, if they have Bowmaster, then I'm more interested in playing this Mystic Sanctuary and putting stock up back in. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to represent Red Blast. They're not going to play around Red Blast, by the way. Like, we're in a position where we're just exchanging. Like, they're not doing that. But they could. There's a world where they could. Again, do I care if I want this Force of Will? It would be pitching this. Like, I think I'm just more, right now, I'm interested, now that they haven't spent their turn and they have a Force. I guess I need to, but like I can just put Mystic Sanctuary, put Forsake the Worldly on top, and then play it like that. So if I take stock up, and if I take stock up and Brainstorm, I can fix my hand a bit, and that's probably better if I can put a Forsake the Worldly in my hand. Yeah, let's do that. I'm cool trying to get one of exchanging this island for another card, and now that I have a critical juncture in my yard, I would like to put Forsake the Worldly on top. Yes, I'm going to lose the time. It's okay, fam. So for the Worldly on top, I'm going to say yes. Now that we have that thing covered, I'm just going to stock up. If they want to force it, that's cool. If they want to pierce it, that's also cool. If they go Beanstalk into the thing, I'm certainly taking the Forsake the Worldly. And here, I actually want to take Scroll Rack as a means to get around future Bowmasters with all these Mystic Sanctuaries that I'm going to endure. So we'll pass here. I think this is like the interesting clause. Like I could even see like Scroll Rack post board against a world where like more miracles are important. So like maybe there's an interesting thing of like I'm sold on one Scroll Rack, but like it's possible that like you play more Scroll Racks in the board when you really need to leverage like a lot of miracles. Like let's say you're playing, instead of like 5 miracles across the main and then a miracle on the board, like let's say you're playing 8 or 9 miracles across the 75, much of which is post board. Between like, I know that there's other things like banishment and or banishing stroke and things like that, which are bad. But like hypothetically, we lived in a world where like, oh, I want actually 4 Terminus in my 75 because I want to be able to deal with Quarry Steel Cutter and like other aggro decks, and I want to be able to get away from Prismatic Ending having to deal with the over index of DRC. So I want to bring in Terminus against Delver, in which case I also want to bring in my Flusters because I want to be able to protect those Termini. Then if you have an over index of that, if you think of Brainstorm, if you think of Scroll Rack as taking on the load of the miracles the same way that Brainstorm does, then you can offset the load on your Brainstorms. And so like playing something in the board to take off load on your Brainstorm is actually a totally reasonable thing to do. And I would not be opposed to that world. So I'm going to play this fetch. I'm actually going to cycle here because I want an instant speed fetch for a Mystic Sanctuary, but I'm going to put a Mystic Sanctuary to put right now a stock up into my hand, or it can just go to my end step because I apparently misclicked something. That's irrelevant. Whatever. we're in garbage time in this game. So I think that like there is a world where like maybe that sort of thing exists. Like you could be like if you're not going to be on counterbalance, in which case you can like afford the okay, I'm going to go down a card for overwhelming quality of top of my library. If you think of scroll rack going down the card, but then giving you some access to being able to solve something with the top of your library in the same way that counterbalance does, they sort of fill the same space. You can't play scroll rack and counterbalance. That's going down too many cards. But you can, let's see, I'm not going to brainstorm into a bowmaster here, but you can do one or the other. It's too cute to do both because it's too much card. You're losing too much raw card quantity, and that's just you can't afford to do that. So I'm going to Mystic Sanctuary. We're going to put stock up. Okay. And now here's a position where like I did not want to play into Bowmaster last turn. And so what would happen is if they were doing anything here, it would have made sense. Oh, this is lovely. This is really lovely. They want to fight over. They want to put their endurance on the board here. Like they're still holding up Bowmaster, and me being able to go scroll rack plus get rid of all this chafe in the way that like Bowmaster can't because the load on the brainstorm to solve this and Bowmaster adds an additional thing is too high. That's lovely. So I'm gonna scroll rack. They should force this, by the way. This is the force target, and they're thinking about it. That's kind of cool. They're thinking about it. I mean, they're gonna win on time, so like they can choose not to think about this and just force it, so we can just keep clicking. Also, all right. So we are going to rack now because I would like to get rid of these lands if I can. 1, 2, 3, all gone. I'm also okay with keeping the predict because if they go Bowmaster in the end step, then I'll predict in response. So we'll get rid of these 3. Drew Enforce Negation, stock up Swords to Plowshares. That's great. I would like to get rid of the plane, so I'm going to stack it on top because I'm going to cast Predict. I'm not going to take any action here. I'm going to take 3 from this thing because I would like to Swords the Bowmaster when it comes down, so I'm going to Predict in response, but then I'm going to Swords it because if they fight over the Predict, then I'll Swords it on the stack when it touches the board because I know that they have a force from earlier and they just have to figure out like when they deem the critical juncture to be. I'm tapping off of Red Blast. I'm not interested in bluffing that anymore. They're not going to play around it anyway. So planes, drew through that, and now we have a ton of cards for this scroll rack. I think end step, I'm happy to sword this guy, see if they want to use their force here. This sword was committed to the Bowmaster, but since they're sitting on the Bowmaster and I'm going to have access to Mystic Sanctuary, and scroll rack to get through it, I'm okay with just moving on. If they have a removal spell still in their deck, like this is the spot to use it on. You want to sack the endurance, and then if you have a second endurance, you can endurance and cycle your own endurance back into your deck. Okay, so this represents a Mystic Sanctuary, so I'm going to stock up now. We would love this thwart. I'm also sort of interested in this Wasteland to compel action on their force. I'll cut your... let's see. I'm going to rack first for 3. If I can cut them off of green sources, I'm happy to do that. So I'm going to go Flooded Strand, Island, Meticulous Archive. Meticulous Archive is going to put the island into the yard. I'm not going to fire off the Predict this turn because I'm going to hold up Force of Negation at all times. I am not going to use this Wasteland yet. I'm going to give them access to something, but I'm going to make them have to think about this. Again, if you're just joining us, thanks for coming in at hour 12 of the video. I understand we're going to lose on time in this match. That's okay. The goal of this league was not to figure out, can this deck win? Can this, we play through time. Like that is not what matters. What matters is solving problems. And because we have the Forsake the Worldly to fight over that, I am going to fight here, and I'm not going to pitch a card. Typically we pitch cards, but I have thwart against an opposing up the Beanstalk, which case they would have to use the one force that they have. They will be light on cards, and then I'm going to have Mystic Sanctuary, thwart plus this scroll rack and a full grip. So my entire deck is just going to be in my hands every turn at a certain point, and at that point, I'm cool with being able to just plow through that sort of action. This Baragorf is just irrelevant. I have Swords to Plowshares. We are at the irrelevant stage of the game type deal. It's kind of cool. Do I want to fight over it now? I guess I could. I'm just gonna get me a Mystic Sanctuary. Mystic Sanctuary for this stocking up consign is super sweet. So sweet. What is that even doing in her deck? That is so cool, man. So cool. Fight over this thing. You want to fight over it? Look at this. Look at this. Look at this grip, dude. Like, that is the correct thing to do, by the way. But I'm going to float 3. I'm going to thwart this. And we are going to finish this video off with a bang. Well, that was awesome. And then I would get to scroll rack and put my whole grip back in my deck, and we get to go again. So let us take a look back here. I know we've talked about it a bunch. One thing that I think could happen is I'm actually way more interested in deduces coming in. So like if we were to change the deck out, I would get rid of these. I would put in I'll look at this. Let's just do a live action sort of like swap for like what the next look at what the deck might look like is. So fill up with 4 of these. I think if Wasteland main is interesting, I think Elixir of Immortality is out, but I think that I would still be interested in the having means to recycle. Witness the Future is really bad. I like Witness the Future as a means of like when you have access to a Witness the Future in your deck, it means that like Mystic Sanctuary getting instants and sorceries, and then Witness the Future covering everything else, including lands, is really important. So if they like start stripping your Mystic Sanctuaries, you can just go forever. It being an impulse is totally fine. And now that we've like moved our deck down, I'm okay having the Elixir of Immortality out and then going back to the like. I will be very excited for when they give me a new version of this card that's like 2 mana. Essentially, what I would really love is if they printed Gaia's Blessing that was like blue white instant, exactly Gaia's Blessing's text, and then gains some amount of life. That would be so good because that would condense so many of what I want incidentally in my deck into one card, which is really all I want to allocate to it. So I could see a world where we are working in this space. I could see God Eternal Kefnet leaving or going post board and just being the grindy matchup. Maybe we move here now that we're solidly in blue white. I could see a world where we cut this. There's a world where I've tested this card before and I've been interested in trying it out again, but I couldn't do it because I wasn't able to support sufficient basics, but it's essentially Lorien Revealed number 5. So Fountain Point Bell is it seems like it's a nonsense card similar to Scroll Rack, but if we think about it, like when this artifact enters, we search the library for a basic land, reveal it and put it on top. So on turn 1, it can still function as Lorien Revealed, and that you're going to hit your second land drop. The other thing is, if later in the game, if you don't need that, it is another 1 mana spell that sets up your predict and gets you presumably a card that you don't want in your deck anymore, which is a basic land, out of your deck, so you can set this up and predict it away. But then also it's one sacrifice it to draw a card, which means that it also is a Mystic Sanctuary and put it back on top of your deck, something back on top of your deck, and then you can miracle something. Similar to how Deduce making clues is really important. So like I like this as like we're on 18 lands with the Wasteland, but really we're on 1923 lands with the Lorien Revealed in this. So like I'd be interested in testing this out next. Post board, I think if we have the thing, we're off of Power Blast, we would be off of this. I like Leave No Traces. I think against the One Ring decks, I think you need some number of Consigned to Memories, which work again now that we're on Deduces. So the positive thoughts here as this is taking a while. So I'd be, we'll put 4 here just in case I want to move something around. But I think like otherwise we get to go post board Wasteland against the Wasteland decks. I actually really do still enjoy the tech that I was on from the previous format where it was Wasteland post board. You could just be a Wasteland deck. I like being able to have as a 19th or an 18th land here that you can go Wasteland, play Fountain Port Bell, and that can solve your mana, or Wasteland Lorien Revealed, that can solve your mana. I could also see a world of since we're really light here, you just remove and treat the angels, because this card is not playable. This is just my brand, so it's still here, but it shouldn't be. But I could see if you can figure out what the next best cheap way to win the game is, that is at 2 mana. I'd be interested in moving up on Wastelands in the main, and then having a cheaper win condition in the board. Like theoretically, if we had some form of life gain, we could just be the actual clear, clean control deck game one, and then just be really disciplined the moment that we know that it's just going to take forever and we are probably behind to just like pack it up. But otherwise, we could. There is a world where like if you play as like the super clean control deck that can't win game one outside of your opponent naturally decking, the benefit that you have of that is against opponents where when your game is locked up and you are playing to your win condition, which is you can't deck because you have Thwart Mystic Sanctuary in your deck, and they can deck, you aren't slow playing, you're not doing anything wrong. You're playing to your win condition, which is your opponent naturally decking. And when you get to the position where they aren't going to cast anything relevant anymore, as long as you're still playing at a reasonable pace, then if they just refuse to concede because they want to see a win condition, then you can just win matches 1-0. And then you don't have to dilute your deck with stuff that you otherwise wouldn't want, like win conditions. So I could see a world where, like, if you think like, because of that, I want to be able to beat the stuff that I otherwise would have problems with, which is stuff like Urza Saga, then you can move more of this stuff main, and then you can just fire off Wastelands as ways to be disruptive and be better against Ancient Tomb decks. I think if you're in that type of space, you would want at least one force of negation main, because once you introduce one aspect, one function in your deck, and can go infinite between Mystic Sanctuary and Thwart, once you introduce one aspect of that, you have infinite copies of it theoretically. So if you have I can remove spells on the stack, I can exile them forever, at least one, you can then demonstrably prove that, like, if we go forever, I could exile everything that goes on the stack that's not a creature. But you played Source to Plowshares, so if a creature touches you, can also be like, I can exile all your creatures. So, but having one force of negation in your deck, if somebody were asking like, oh well, I have this Gaia's Blessing, so I also can't deck. It's like, no. Like, I can never deck because I literally have this engine between Mystic Sanctuary and Thwart. But like, I have force of negation to assure that you will always be able to deck because I can exile that thing that is otherwise keeping you in the game the same way. So I like that. I think like Prismatic Ending gets a lot softer when you don't have a third color, so I could see cutting that. It depends on how much you respect Tamiyo. If you respect Tamiyo pretty deeply, then want to play it. If you don't need to. I could also see like you could move into a world where you play the second plane and then play stuff like Wrath of the Skies. I hate that shit because it just like pushes you further away from being able to get to Mystic Sanctuary, and that's just so important. I would just much rather play something in the blue space, like even to the point where you're playing things like Cryptic Command or something like that. Like, I get that sounds crazy, but like I've done a bunch of it, and like if you can just operate entirely on blue, it's so much more important to be able to get to thwart regrowing your stuff by turn 4 in a format that's so fast than it is to have to like cut yourself off with double planes if you're playing for Mystic Sanctuary, which is like what we're doing because that's the function of the deck. So like if like let's say we were in this space and you're just relying on 3 Vanishment to solve your problems, or like Force Will to solve those problems, and then like really set up your deck in a way where you're like, okay, I really need to align my white spells, then I could also see a world of doing something where we're like this. If you want to lean in onto more Fountain Port Bells and things like that in this space, like I don't know if you noticed, but we really did not fetch a lot of our basics all that much. We just assume that like the format is fast enough that that's not something that people are interested in, and a lot of decks just aren't interested in anyway. So if you play 1-1, you could even go like this and then move, but then like like play only a single basic and then play more Hydroblast on the board for the red matchups. Whether or not that's reasonable, I still don't think so, because I think Delver is still worth respecting, even though it's not like the boogeyman of the format as it has been in the past. So for that, I would still play the second island. It doesn't matter. Just give me an island and I'll throw this in, and that way I was fast clicking and then it's a thing. So let me just get this back real quick. We'll just find an island. And if anybody has like tips for how to make this faster for me, like, it shows everything that is island, and I'm like, nah, just show me literal basic island. So whatever, it does not matter. Let's do, these are nice. Okay, so if we are on 3 islands in the plane still, which I think is reasonable. Like, if you're on 4 Wasteland, like this is part of the thing where like if you're on 4 Wasteland, I just wouldn't play win condition. I would like actually cut stuff. Like I'd probably cut this. Now you're on 21 land, but if you think of these as spells, but you would be able to cast them, and that's all pretty interesting. But then I think more or less, I think you can get away with this, because if you could cycle them back in, that's all well and good. I like where we're going here. I mean, this is like as we're thinking about what other cards would work. I mean, let me know in the comments if you think that there are other things that are interesting. I like being able to play the 3-1 split in that, like, if you ever see a Wasteland on the table, you can just fetch your basics and know that you can still get to Mystic Sanctuary. So if you think of Mystic Sanctuary as like a blue pip spell, that's relevant. I could see something where, because we're on the 4 Wasteland package, you don't necessarily need all 4 consign. Leave No Trace, I think, is just a banger against that sort of matchup where you need it. I think you could play like 2 Fluster. I like having you know, these 2 things can be literally anything else. Like, you don't need this thing. I think, like, you probably want, if you lose game 1, you're going to want some way to like recoup and go faster. I am of the mind that when you play against Beanstalk, Beanstalk just can't touch the table. And so, like, I think, like, in the previous Beanstalk world where it was everywhere, I was on all 8 forces across my 75. And I think I'm still in that space. I think that, like, you just can't afford to have that card touch the table, and it just makes it so that the game can't be about anything else. And so, even though if they go Beanstalk and you go Force, they go Force, and you can go Force back, if it just comes down to where, okay, we both just mind twisted ourselves over this Beanstalk, like, that's what has to happen. Because if you think like the Beanstalk being on the table just is a hard lock of saying, target opponent can't win the game, then you would be like, okay, well, I'll over index any amount of that to make sure that that doesn't happen to me. So I think maybe doing like a 2-2 split on Wastelands is reasonable, unless like you're thinking about something specific. Because I'm sort of feeling naked without Prismatic Ending. It's something that I'm probably going to have to train myself out of, but I'd be more interested in really leaning into Vanishment as something that you could draw super early to cast off an island, and then being able to convert a Predict relatively early on too. Because if you can convert a Predict early on your opponent without having to spend your own cantripping, that's kind of cool. That's like something that I have found to appreciate in the past. I could also see a world where, like, you could play like the one ofs that don't align with your mana base, and by one ofs, like the one, like, I love me a good I love me a good uh unexpectedly absent, but it being double white is just not a reasonable thing to do in a mana base like this, I don't think. Um, but it's also reasonable. Like, I could see that a world of that. But that was also at the time when you could like counterbalance and do like counterbalance shenanigans. So like if they cast a 2-drop with the counterbalance on the table, you can unexpectedly absent your counterbalance with a trigger on the stack, reveal the counterbalance to the counterbalance trigger, and then you counter that 2-drop, and then you untap, cast the counterbalance again, and then you're just still in the place. So your unexpectedly absent became a counterspell. Stuff like that is kind of fun and cool. But I think in this world, like, you're probably in the space where, because you don't have the prismatic endings against the like Delver and DRC, I think if we're in a world like this, like reasonably in a world like this where we're not interested in counterbalancing, then I think we're in a world where we are interested in being the 4x Terminus deck. Because before, if you had DRC and Delver, you would be able to go, okay, I can line up my Swords to Plowshares and my Prismatic Endings in 1-for-1 against your 8 1-drops. And then, as long as you haven't disrupted my development or haven't found like multiple card draw spells to, otherwise go over the top and protect the queen, then if you can just get through that early stage, then you'll win the game. But I could see a world where, if we're on like we're cheap, we're on Deduces and Scroll Rocks, which really leans into like the miracles being powerful, then I would think that I think it would be a better choice to lean harder into that. And in which case, I would look at something like this. Now, for Terminus, maybe too much, but like, you would really think like against Delver, where DRC and Delver each don't technically go up a card. DRC does a lot of filtering, but they don't technically go up cards. So if there's ever a position where you like fight over the first one and they're not putting you on as a 4 Terminus deck, they might go, okay, you dealt with the first threat, and now I'm just going to go threat. And then if you can go Terminus, and then you have all these Terminus with Mystic Sanctuary, and you can deduce with the clues to convert those miracles, then you can actually start using Terminus to be a powerful tool. And that's because you're really leaning on the miracle side of the deck. So if you've watched Eternal Dodos, where it's like ABC deck building, it's you want Terminus, therefore you want Sensei's Top, therefore you want Counterbalance. Well, if we are getting rid of the counterbalance part of the deck, if we don't think that's strong enough, but we still think that Terminus or Miracles are part of it, then it's like, okay, I want Terminus, therefore I want Scroll Rack, therefore I want what? And typically in that space, it would be like, okay, I want something that can go up a whole ton of cards, in which case Thwart does fit that bill, because Mystic Sanctuary plus Thwart and then fetches, and then you have Witness the Future to be able to put all of that back into your deck, or Lorien Revealed with the Mystic Sanctuary to shuffle all that back into your deck. And so like you can just get to this infinite pattern of I have my deck and my answers at all times, and Scroll Rack can just make it so that like through a Bowmaster, which is I think important, that you can really manage all of that time. So like I would look at something like this. I think that like these would go, and then this 15 card sideboard, if you're in this space, like you probably don't need the 4th Terminus. I would keep on the Wastelands. You probably don't need like the 2nd Consign if you're on for Wasteland. I mean, sorry, the 3rd Consign if you're on for a Wasteland. So you could probably do like 2 this and then put in like, I don't know, 2 Mentor, 2 something. I think that Mentor is a little bit worse because Mentor plus Deduce or Predict is not as efficient. I think you want to be on way more cantrips if you were on the Mentor plan. I could see if you were like, oh, well, against the Consign to Memory Wasteland package that I would bring in against like the One Ring decks, then maybe it is like the Geist of Saint Traft, like essentially the decks where you're not going to keep your Terminus in. It's possible that like, oh yeah, Geist is actually the best option that we have available to us because it hits the hardest. They can't remove it if it touches. And most importantly, if you are bringing in the Geist of Saint Traft in those types of matchups, but you're not boarding out your blue cards, if anything, you're going up on blue cards, then it being blue, so if you're playing multiple copies of it, if you draw one early, it's not a dead card in your hand. You're not just stuck with this otherwise, with this trap, because being blue means that if you don't want to die, you can pitch it. And you have to remember that, like, even though this could help you close the door faster, your deck is still built to just never die because you can never deck. So if you get in a position where you're like, oh, I have to force and pitch both of my win condition, these 2 win conditions post board against like, the One Ring deck, it doesn't matter. As long as you keep that shit off the table, you're going to win the game, because they can't actually kill you and they will run out of threats, where you cannot because you go infinite. So maybe this is like where we look at next time. Like maybe this is what the deck looks like when we give it another go. But until then, I appreciate you guys sticking around for this incredibly long video. This is what most Miracles videos are going to be like. A lot of me talking, a lot of stream of consciousness of like the thought process through. Hopefully you enjoyed me trying to figure out what was going on and how a lot of the play patterns lined up. And you can see like where there's certain problems with the deck because of like just what actually exists as availability to us. But I think that the deduces coming in next time will be really, really interesting. I think shout out to Premodern. Premodern is an awesome format where I play a bunch of Scroll Rack, but getting me back onto the idea of Scroll Rack and getting away from Counterbalance. I was on Counterbalance for a while, but like I'm interested in exploring this for a little bit. But yeah, I think this is where I would put the next video. But like, comment, subscribe. If you want to write for EternalDurdles.com, just reach out to me on any social media at Force of Phil, at Force of Phil. I'm happy to write anything legacy, vintage, pre-modern, any modern, any Eternal format. We're happy to publish you on EternalDurdles.com. That's EternalDurdles.com. It's written Magic the Gathering content. But otherwise, get in the comments. Let me know what you think if you like this kind of content. And until then, what it do, baby?
Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button. It grows the legacy content ecosystem we all love by relaying to the platform that you are part of our passionate community.
And to go even further, click the links for subscription or to support directly via Patreon to help us create more content for you. Patreon supporters get 4 exclusive extra episodes per month. If you're listening on an audio platform, head over to patreon.com/EternalDurdles.
Thanks so much for your support.
We'll see you in the next one.